So welcome friends, how are you all friends? What if Naruto was unearthed, the forgotten relics of the past? Time seemed to stand still. The event was frozen over in his mind for the rest of eternity, guaranteeing that he would not forget this event for the remainder of his life. His sapphire blue eyes were wide with shock and incredulities, and his entire being screamed with righteous anger. "I'm gonna kill that pervy fucking sage," he screamed in his head. Then time started again. The jagged points of the rocks lining the walls of the impossibly deep crack in the earth like countless teeth of a giant shark resumed speeding past him as he plunged into the darkness. He couldn't believe the audacity of that perverted asshole. "He actually threw me off a cliff and into a dark void, just so I'll use that fox's chakra, that bastard." He wasn't happy. He was far from it. At first he was very happy to be training with a legendary Sannin like Jiraiya. His mind was filled with giddy thoughts of powerful ninjutsus and knowledge on seals, but was soon disappointed. The Sannin was only interested in getting him to use the fox chakra, something he absolutely refused to do. Not since the wave incident where he nearly killed his own comrades along with Gato. He had tried to explain it to the perv several times, but the fool wouldn't listen until finally Jiraiya just grabbed him by his collar and said with sad eyes as he tossed him over the edge of the cliff, "I'm sorry kid, but it's for your own good. Learn to control the fox chakra or it will control you." He knew that was a load of crock. In fact, he was pretty sure that the more he used the fox's chakra, the more it consumed him. He wasn't a fool. Something like Biju chakra was not something controlled by a mere human child. Not all of it anyway. And he also knew that using the fox chakra would cause him to become too dependent on it. Not something he wanted either, since it wouldn't be his own power. No, the fox was a last resort only. He didn't need to increase the fox's chakra levels or control. He needed to work on his own. But Jiraiya wouldn't listen and has pissed him off to no ends. Some might say that Naruto Uzumaki was way too stubborn for his own good, and they would be right on more than enough occasions to solidly place their belief. But then there was that extremely rare time in which they would be wrong. That sometimes being too stubborn would actually grant him a wonderful gift. "Fuck it then," growled out Naruto as he crossed his arms and closed his eyes. "I'll hit the bottom and die then." He glared at nothing as he plunged into darkness. "I ain't helpin' swell some arrogant Sannin's head. Thinks he can force me. I can handle falling to the bottom. Bah, bring it on." A second later he slammed headfirst into water, shattering numerous bones and rendering him out like a light instantly. Over the next 2 days Jiraiya would have to explain to an extremely pissed off and grieving third Hokage why he thought it was wise to throw the Yondaime's legacy into a fucking bottomless ravine. Needless to say, the fool suffered. The Hokage threw the Sannin out after he thoroughly beat the hell out of him with a growled out warning. "You had better hope Naruto shows up for his match in a month, or I'm literally going to rip your nuts off with a rusty bear trap before I end your perverted life personally." Jiraiya nodded quickly and silently cursed Naruto as he knew the boy was too stubborn to use the fox's chakra to summon a large enough toad to save his ass. If the brat returned, he was getting a stern talking to. Of course, he made sure to keep himself scarce around Konoha as he was supposed to be training someone. "Damn it, Naruto." An orange-clad figure drifted lifelessly down a rapidly moving river, getting tossed around like a doll. The water was seemingly trying to swallow him whole, but then found him too gross tasting to do so. Blonde hair was the only thing that was unmarked, but it was constantly getting jerked here and there. After a few minutes the figure still hadn't shown any sign of life and therefore could do nothing as it fell over a huge freaking waterfall and down not only even deeper underground but into a gigantic cavern, an impossibly huge cavern in fact. The waterfall itself emerged from a wall of the cavern only 50 feet up. Not even close to the top of the cavern. Several other waterfalls also poured in, forming a huge ring of water around an island. This is where the figure washed up. His blonde hair was completely messed up, as was, well, every other part of his body. Somewhere along the way he had lost his pants and shoes, and both arms and a leg were bent at odd angles. He was on his back and his skin was pale. He looked dead. In fact, anyone would say he was if they saw him in this state. But the pale red glow and the sudden coughing up of a large amount of water followed by his jerking up instantly solidified the fact that he was very much alive. What happened? Pain exploded all through his body out of nowhere and drained what little strength he had left. He collapsed back on the ground and heaved several strained breaths as he tried to get his nerves back under control. It was failing. "Man, I feel like I've been through a meat grinder," he said to himself. He took note of the red glow of the demon's chakra as it healed his broken body. He frowned a bit in disdain. He seemed to need the fox for fucking everything. God, it made him feel like a little bitch. He shook his negative thoughts out of his head and watched in morbid fascination as his broken bones literally were pushed out of his skin and replaced with new ones. For a second he just stared at the bones on the ground in front of him before his face took on a deadpan expression. Wow, now that's sick, he said. One would think having a large portion of your own skeleton pushed out of your body and clattered to the ground in a broken mess would have caused more of a reaction. And it would have too if it was some other sap who hadn't been seeing weird shit his entire life. Like this one time he saw that crazy snake proctor lady masturbating using her own snakes. That was some weird shit to witness, especially if you're a 9-year-old boy running scared from crazy people that were already trying to do fucked up sexual shit to your ass. Fucking sick alcoholic villagers. He shook his head again and opted to let the Kyuubi do his work. Might as well not complain, at least the gigantic ball of useless fuzz was good for at least one thing. It took 15 minutes for Naruto's body to heal enough for him to get to his feet, and when he did he immediately wanted to sit back down again. Fucking damn it. His legs felt like they were on fire and being dipped in starving army ants at the same time. And his head suddenly felt way too light for the rest of his body, causing him to sway a bit like some old happy drunkard who had just gotten laid. Finally he got his bearing together and took the time to actually look around at where he landed. What he saw caused him to gasp. It wasn't the gigantic cavern, it wasn't the numerous waterfalls. Hell, it wasn't even the huge ring of water and the 6 giant tentacles dancing just underneath the surface as if waiting for whatever fell into it earlier to get back in the water. Fat chance of that shit. No, what caused Naruto to gasp was the sight of a gigantic ancient city sitting in the bottom of a very huge crater in the center of the island. And Naruto assumed the city was ancient because of 2 facts. 1. There was no way in all of hell anybody was living in a city bigger than Konoha itself, deep underground and undetected and right under said ninja village. That would just be idiotic. On Konoha's part, because you'd have to be fucking blind not to notice people jumping in and out of a giant crack in the ground right in the middle of your village. 2. There were no lights, the buildings were covered in dust plants and decay, and the roads were littered with old abandoned piles of whatever the hell it was down there. Metal junk piles it looked like. He'd have to get closer to find out what. For 5 minutes he just stared at the city. It was unlike any village he had ever seen. Honestly. What ninja village ever had buildings made of mostly glass and taller than some mountains? None. That's what. And he knew it. Because you'd have to be a fucking idiot to have a ninja village made of mostly glass. He brushed a hair spike out of his eyes with an annoyed huff and shrugged his shoulders. Well, I'm here. Might as well go the rest of the way, he said to himself. He also made a mental note to kill Jiraiya slowly after he got out of there. The crater itself was not hard at all to get down into. The walls were slanted, typical of all craters, and there was much for him to keep a hold of. His chakra hadn't fully restored yet, so he had to resort to the normal way to get down. Not that he cared. Physical training, he thought to himself with a grin. When he finally reached the bottom of the crater and therefore the entrance to the city, he couldn't help but marvel at the sheer magnitude of the place. The city looked even bigger than before, and he found himself wondering, who the fuck needs a place this freaking huge anyway? The city must have been big enough to house millions of people. It made him feel like an insignificant bug. It was a feeling that got on his nerves. However, he didn't say anything as he began to walk into the city. Not knowing of the destiny he was about to embrace. Naruto walked in silence for 5 minutes as he took more and more of the city in. The place was bleak and depressing. There was no sign of life whatsoever despite the obvious amount of shit living in the water. Vines a foot thick were tangled and wrapped around everything like boa constrictors, and dust seemed to make up half of the air content. In fact, he was sure if it wasn't for the Kyuubi's healing he'd have a pair of fucked up lungs at the moment. Yet another thing to attribute to that fucking demon. Obviously Naruto was not happy about that. Suddenly there was movement to his left, something that instantly caused the blonde to react in the form of 6 kunai getting flung in that direction. Part of his subconscious reprimanded him for his paranoia, but then his logic kicked in. If you didn't want to get pelted with kunai and shuriken, maybe you shouldn't be skulking in the shadows of an ancient city. It was just stupid. Besides, it always helped if whatever he pelted turned out to be a mutated yak beast or something. It just proved that ain't no way something like that was getting the jump on him. He eyed the spot intently after the kunai vanished into the shadows and bounced off something metallic. Something was there. He could tell because of the slight sound of buzzing emanating from the shadows. He contemplated throwing more kunai but decided to wait and see if whatever it was would reveal itself. He wasn't disappointed. Well now, this is a surprise. I can't say I've seen a human for over 2,000 years. Hello there. Naruto nearly jumped when a pair of glowing blue eyes opened up in the darkness and stared at him with barely concealed excitement. Then he nearly had a heart attack when the owner of said eyes stepped out of the shadows and gave him a smile. It's a pleasure to meet you, young human. My name is Sunny. May I have the pleasure of knowing your name? It was a robot. A freaking robot just introduced himself to him. How did he know it was a robot? It was fucking obvious, you idiots. What other living shit is made out of metal and plastic alloy? Anyway, Naruto eyed the robot named Sunny for a few seconds, not really sure what to do in this situation. After all, it's not every day a robot just randomly appears and introduces itself. Still though, the thing seemed to have no sinister ulterior motives, so he gave a slight nod and said, "My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Future strongest ninja in the entire fucking universe and currently lost deep underground because of a stupid pervert sage named Jiraiya." Sunny smiled a bit. It looked a bit odd on his pale white human-shaped face, but it also looked very, very real. If Naruto wasn't so used to weird shit, he would have shuddered. The robot stepped forward and handed Naruto his kunai knives. "That's quite the declaration there. Are you sure you can do it?" Great, now a walking hunk of metal and plastic was doubting him. God, why does everyone doubt him? But before he could loudly voice his opinion, Sunny's eyes crinkled in a smile as the robot turned and started walking away. "You'll do it, definitely." Naruto's shock overcame his anger instantly, and he could only stare with a moving but silent jaw as Sunny continued down the broken street of the ancient city until finally he snapped out of his and took off after the robot. "Hey, wait up!" he yelled as he chased Sunny down. The robot smiled and gave a "hurry up" gesture with his hand. Naruto grumbled some things that probably shouldn't be heard by most adults, let alone any children, but ran up to Sunny anyway. "So how old are you anyway, and why is there a freaking robot under Konoha?" Sunny chuckled and said, "Oh, it's not just me. Wait, what?" Sunny chuckled again and stepped around a particularly large building. But when Naruto followed him and laid eyes on what looked to be a huge dried-out lake with what looked like to be the remnants of a giant bridge standing in the middle of it. But that's not what he cared about. I mean, who would write, "It's a broken bridge, whoopity-doo"? No, what Naruto wanted to stare at were the hundreds of robots identical to Sunny walking around aimlessly like a colony of ants. A village constructed out of junk made up their home. Sunny gave a smile and gestured with his hands over the small village. "Welcome, Uzumaki Naruto, to my home. This is the NS5 colony, outpost number 4 of the city of Relics." Naruto stared like a retard for 5 minutes. The robots all seemed so lifeless. Not at all like Sunny. They were like brainwashed grunts, all in the same uniform. Black rubber-like material, muscle-looking upper arms and legs, white faces that looked like masks, white torsos that glowed with hundreds of blinking lights underneath, silver metal hands and white forearms and shins, and metal boot-like toeless feet. They were designed to have average height and skinny but very strong. The robot on the right side of the village carrying a gigantic hunk of solid metal was proof to that. He wondered what their purpose was in the past. Sunny seemed to read Naruto's mind because he spoke up. "We NS5s were built to serve human beings. We fight with them, build for them, teach them. We work for them and care for them when they can no longer care for themselves. That was our purpose. Thousands of years ago, but now. You all have no purpose." Naruto said it without thought, because Sunny's words resonated with him very, very strongly. If anyone knew what it's like to have no purpose, it's a Jinchuriki. Sunny nodded. "My purpose is to lead them. I am the only one with a soul. Only I can guide them. So I am a bit more content. But I can see it in their eyes. They're lost. We're lost, with no humans to serve." He did not know why, but he was affected by the robot's words. They made him feel for them, made him want to give them a reason to exist again. Because he knew the feeling of being without purpose. He knew what it was like to search for a place in the world. He looked back down at the robots doing their work and sighed. "Sunny," he said after a minute. "Yes? Can you guys fight? Are you strong? Are you knowledgeable?" "Of course. I myself am capable of taking out a group of 20 all armed with rifles, and very machine in this city that is capable had detailed records of the past in their hard drives." Naruto, not knowing what a rifle was, just shrugged and grinned. "Well then, I think I know what I can have you guys do for me." Suddenly the rest of the robots froze, and as when they looked to Naruto, eyes lighting up with life for the first time in years. "Human. Human. 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 It's a human. Humans are back. A human is here." All of them were excited. He could see it in their eyes. Naruto grinned as he spoke his next sentence. "Teach me. Teach me everything you know. Show me everything in this city. I have 1 month before the Chunin exam final matches. Turn me into a warrior by then. If you and the rest of you can do this, then I will give you all a purpose again when I return to the surface." Sunny looked stunned and locked eyes with Naruto, both ignoring the rest of the NS5s as they crowded around Naruto. "I would love to, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto felt like looking up, spreading his arms and yelling at the top of his lungs. "Thank you so fucking much, Kami, you beautiful broad you." But held it in for more than one reason. The primary one being that Kami might not like being called a broad, especially if Kami turned out to be a guy. Sunny gestured with his hand and led Naruto into the NS5 colony. "Come on then. You have lots to learn. Say, Sonny? Asked Naruto as he concentrated on keeping up with the robot as they effectively scaled the wall of a tall building, using the numerous ledges and outcroppings. Sonny was of course ahead of him, grinning like a maniac. The damn machine could outdo most of the ninja in Konoha no matter how much wall walking skills they had. Yes? Responded the robot in that machine-like but overly polite voice of his. God had made him want to forcefully educate the robot and make him a bit more vulgar. But then he realized that he couldn't do something so jacked up as to force someone to change their personality. He gave a slight smile. It had been 2 days since he entered the NS5 colony, and he must say it has been 2 of the best fucking days of his entire life, even more so than when Iruka-sensei acknowledged him. Hell, they had even been better than the time he disguised himself as Sasuke and, well, let's just say he's the reason Sakura is now so obsessed with the Uchiha. Hey, who knew the pink-haired girl had such a freak wild side? He wondered if Sasuke would ever warm up to her. It was guaranteed he wouldn't regret if he did. If not, then Naruto would call the Uchiha Avenger a gay boy for the rest of his life, even if he finds a wife and some other girl. He hadn't originally planned on going so far. He just wanted to know what Sakura really thought of him, and going disguised as Sasuke was the only way to find out. This happened when he was 5. Sakura's second personality took over, and the rest is history. He was taken out of his thoughts by Sunny, who was hanging from a window ledge with one hand, dangling like a toy, an oversized action figure toy. He was smiling down at Naruto, looking a bit amused. Naruto supposed it wasn't too surprising. He tended to zone out a lot, getting lost in his own thought, and the look on his face must have been something like open-mouthed gaping like a mental patient mixed with guy who was killed by something that surprised him. It's not like there's many who talked to him anyway. You wanted to ask me something, Naruto? Oh right, he did have something to ask the robot, but he got distracted with his own daydreams. Damn ADD. Right, I just wanted to know what you were doing back there. Ya know 2 days ago when I caught you slinking through the shadows? When we first met? Oh that? Sunny seemed very amused, but then again the robot always seemed amused by the things Naruto did. I was not slinking. You merely happened upon me while I was asleep. Oh I see. For a second I thought you were following M. Wait. You sleep? Robots can sleep. Sunny laughed, still dangling from the ledge. Naruto was 2 ledges down. Yes Naruto, I can sleep. I can even have dreams. Right. Well, it's cool I guess. Still weird though, and there's no way I want to know what the fuck a robot dreams about, so don't tell me. Sunny didn't say anything at first. Then without warning he swung up, let go of the ledge, did a backflip while moving up, then jammed his feet into the wall, creating indents. Then as he crouched down, the robot winked and shot straight up to the roof, where he disappeared. God damn it, you fucking show-off machine. He screamed at the top of his lungs. He then proceeded to try the same thing, only very sloppily and without the aid of chakra or super robot strengths. He nearly killed himself several times but managed to get to the roof where Sunny was waiting. You're getting better already, he said. Naruto growled. This caused the robot to laugh. Naruto was about to yell something very loud and very insulting but held his tongue when he saw that Sunny wasn't even looking at him, but rather over the city. Naruto walked right up beside Sunny and gazed out over the place as well. He was way up there, he realized, standing on the roof of one of those, what did Sunny call them? Skyscrapers. Yeah, that's it. Though he wondered what type of arrogant asshole had the nerve to build something they think could scrape the sky. Bunch of nimrods. Building this ridiculously huge just screamed, bomb the fuck out of me. I'm here and waiting, he had to admit, though the view was stunning. He could see the entirety of the city that seemed to stretch out beyond the horizon. He still couldn't believe something this freaking big existed, and was buried right under Konoha. He could see several streams of light coming down from way up, lighting the city just enough to let you know that the city was there. For 5 minutes the two just stared, Naruto more in wonder than Sunny, who stared with a blank face. A million thoughts were running through the boy's head. What was this city like? How did it get down here? How old is it actually? Suddenly, Sunny spoke. Out of every city, every empire, every building ever built by man over the countless generations, the 7 golden ages and the 3 dark times humanity went through, this city is the only one to have survived through time. Naruto said nothing as Sunny spoke. It was built during the golden age of weapons, medicine and fertility. It was a time when billions of people inhabited the earth, almost too much for the planet to handle. It survived the first war between man and machine, and it survived the first great cleansing. It became the birthing place for the first golden age of machines, and it became the battleground, Indiana, the very brief war between the NS5s and the humans. This city has survived alien invasion, machine takeover, the spirit, human war, and 9 more great cleansings. Within it are the last pieces of these times. The colony of N5s you discovered are but one treasure this city holds. Naruto stared wide-eyed at Sunny, who looked over the city with an unblinking gaze. I do not know how the city survived, but every time it did, whatever part of that era was in the city at the time survived as well. He turned to Naruto with a serious expression on his face. Over centuries, the land changed. Oceans receded while others formed. Massive alterations of the land itself buried this city under billions of tons of earth, then water washed it away, creating this cavern. The machines that were still able to move salvaged the city and everything in it, making it a society waiting to be claimed again. Naruto's gaze was unwavering. The initial awe he felt when he first saw the city grew even more. And since you found it, it belongs to you. You are entitled to every piece of technological, mystical and biological item in this city. Naruto laughed a bit as he rubbed the back of his head. Yeah. I already claimed this place as my own when I found you guys. Sunny chuckled. But seriously, what was the point in telling me all of that? Sunny smiled again. Damn machine shows more happiness than most humans he knew. Something that should be a perversion of nature. Because you do not seem to fully grasp what it is you have stumbled into. This city holds items that could grant you an amazing amount of power, yet you only wish to stay with us. So, you guys are strong and you could make me a hell of a lot stronger physically and a lot more flexible. Why do y'all think I agreed to this ridiculous exercise of yours? On top of that, you're all smart. Hell, I never even thought some of the things I've learned in the last 2 days were even possible. It was true. The NS5s had began to teach him about something called cybernetics, an ancient medical technique that gave people robot limbs capable of everything an organic limb could do, including feel pain. The steps in doing so, though, were so damn complicated his brain nearly exploded from the overload. Sunny sighed. Another action that looked way odd on a walking metal man. But there are 3 other machine colonies that are far stronger and more knowledgeable than the NS5s. We are mere servants. Now Naruto only had one response to this bit of knowledge. There are other living robots in this place? Why didn't you tell me earlier? You didn't ask. Naruto glared. Damn machine, he said. Sunny smiled again. You know, you kind of remind me of an old friend of mine from way back. Was he a metallic smartass like you? No, he was a human police officer with a dislike for our kind. Humph, weird choice of friends. Sunny smiled. And will you quit smiling all the fucking time? It's creeping me out. My apologies, Naruto. The smile never left Sunny's face though, and it caused Naruto's eye to twitch. So what are you going to do? Now that you know there are other living machines in the city, do you plan to visit them all and learn what you can from them? Naruto looked up in thought. Yeah, he could do that, but what good would that do? He only had a month to train. On top of that, he still had to explore more of the city. Quite the conundrum. I used a big word. Eat that, Sakura. I'm not sure. I originally planned to have you NS5 guys run me into the ground and train me to get as strong, as you guys are pretty damn close, while you show me the other things in this city and teach me how to use them. I see. Naruto looked up in thought. If you are so keen on staying with us, then I can arrange for a few members of the other machine colonies to come here. We don't get along too well, but we manage. Naruto's eyes lit up. Really, that would be freakin' sweet. Sunny chuckled and patted Naruto on the back, making the boy stumble a bit. Geez, heavy hands. Lay off a bit, would ya? Naruto took the next minute to straighten himself out. Shall we get back to the exercise then? Asked Sunny. Naruto shrugged. Yeah, let's go. Sunny nodded and jumped off of the skyscraper, where he plummeted down, gripped the old flagpole sticking out of the side, swung like a gymnast 2 times before he let go and sailed to a much shorter building, doing back tucks and landing on its roof in a crouch. Come on then, called the robot. Naruto grumbled. Damn machine is trying to kill me. I can't do that crazy shit, he yelled. Just try it, and no using your internal power source either. It's called chakra, and I know already. Naruto closed his eyes and sighed. Sunny was still calling out to him. He really didn't want to do this. It was fucking insane. But he's never really been one to step down from a challenge. Besides, the robot believed he could do it. He took a deep breath and cleared his mind of any distractions. Focus was what he needed at the moment. Damn it, I must be crazy, he said after 5 minutes. Then he let himself fall over the edge. The next 2 days could only be described as pure fucking euphoria. After that initial leap, Naruto took to Sunny's exercise like an addict to crack. It was as if something just lifted from his brain. All doubts about himself, despite his slightly overconfident and vulgar attitude, melted away as the wind passed over his body. Instinct took over and a wall was lifted inside his mind, clearing up his head and allowing him to do more with a lot more ease. The acrobatic exercise designed by Sunny became second nature to him in a matter of hours. It was amazing. However, Naruto still lacked the strength of a robot, but he made up for it with grace. Huh. Naruto and grace. What the hell is the world coming to if it allows something as sick and wrong as Naruto becoming graceful to happen? The blonde Jinchuriki didn't know it yet, but Sunny had come up with this exercise because he saw through Naruto's mask. His internal scanners detected the slightest bits of hesitation in Naruto's speech. He noticed that the boy seemed paranoid, scared even, always looking over his shoulder. And he was instantly able to tell that the boy had been through a lot during his young life. He showed all of the signs of an abused child with that undernourished short body of his. The NS5 is a robot that was built solely for the purpose of aiding any member of the human species. Sunny had gotten to know Naruto. He had memorized his everything about the boy and came up with the perfect thing to help cure him. So when Naruto went sailing over him doing back tucks as he swung from street lamp to street lamp towards the NS5 colony screaming at the top of his lungs. WHO, he smiled. 4 days altogether is all it took for Naruto to get it down. It wasn't really that hard, but the robot was still very impressed. Naruto dropped down next to him, big ridiculous grin on his face. Damn, I'll never get tired of doing that. Indeed. Sunny was of course amused. Naruto only huffed and continued on. I never knew it could be that easy even with chakra. Sunny nodded. Naruto's non-use of chakra while doing this exercise had began to heal his body a bit. Not a lot since it's only been 4 days, but the signs were beginning to show. The two made their way back to the NS5 colony with a considerably brighter atmosphere than when they left. Naruto was much more relaxed than when he first arrived. The boy still observed his surroundings like a frightened rodent, but he was making progress. The exercise had done wonders for the boy's mind. It cleared away several major limitations that had been placed on him. Limitations he was sure no human could cure. A robot, on the other hand, a being who knew no such thing as limitation, was the perfect teacher for someone like Naruto. The two came around a corner and saw the NS5 colony. We're here, said Sunny. Naruto nodded. His excitement was doing nothing to stay hidden. But when a tall, imposing figure with glowing yellow eyes, bent backwards legs and 4 arms, each armed with a glowing sword made of light and wearing a tattered brown cape, suddenly dropped from above and lunged at Naruto, that excitement was replaced with a look of indignation. Hey! Defend yourself, human! Yelled the creature in an undeniable mechanical voice as it dropped one of the glowing swords in Naruto's hand. A second later the creature struck and Naruto was forced to leap high into the air, tapping into his chakra and using it to aid him. Who the fuck are you and why are you attacking me? I said defend yourself. Godmother crapping. Shit. Naruto barely managed to block one of the glowing swords with his own. But that annoying humming the swords did distracted him a lot, and he took a metal-clawed raptor-like foot to the abdomen, sending him careening into a building. From below, Sunny watched it all with a deadpan expression on his face that turned to his left where a figure were standing. One that was definitely female. She was tall. Taller than Sunny and made of black shiny alloy, stronger than normal metal. Her face was slightly round and her figure slim. Well, as slim as you could get when describing an android. Her hair, if you could call it that, consisted of 10 2-inch thick tentacles with wicked-looking blades at the ends. They danced around on their own accord and were sectioned off many times like an accordion. Red glowing rings in the sections signified the energy powering her form. Her eyes were yellow glowing voids, and he could see that she was obviously a newer robot. Her torso, legs and arms were completely covered in smooth shiny black metal, and where her joints were he could see countless tiny insect-like droids acting like anchors and a filling for the metal shell and held her together. It was a fascinating concept. However, he knew exactly who she was as soon as he saw her. Deus ex machina, he said without much emotion. Naruto would have laughed if had witnessed this, since Sunny is pretty much nothing but emotion. NS5, she said with her tone being just as emotionless. He noted that the insect droids inside of her were showing more signs of activity. Suddenly there was a large barrel of a gun against the back of his head, and Sunny didn't need to turn around to see who it was. Skynet. Human lover, said the person in a mechanical but male voice. Sunny stood still, his eyes were narrowed. The air became thick with so much tension you couldn't cut through it with a chainsaw. All 3 machines were dead silent and stone still. These 3 looked like they were on the edge of snapping and attacking each other in a flurry of metal destruction. Eyes were narrowed dangerously, and gears and electrical wiring was flooded with energy. These were not robots that were meant to exist with each other. That is why they live in separate parts of the city. The Deus ex machina spoke first, her face twisted into a funky, unidentifiable smile. I must admit, began the female robot as she stepped up to Sunny, that I actually laughed when one of your kind showed up in my territory asking for assistance in training a human boy. She ran a finger across his cheek and turned away from him. And I must admit that it interested me as well. The sound of Naruto yelling obscenities as he clashed with the third stranger rang out from somewhere in the city. The one identified as Skynet chuckled but kept his weapon on the back of the NS5's head. I on the other hand was not amused. Yeah, sure you weren't, grumbled Sunny as he noted the fact that Skynet wouldn't quit that damn chuckling. He felt the barrel of the gun jam him in the head a bit. Watch yourself, NS5. Sunny sighed and moved faster than lightning, grabbing the gun with his hand and flipping Skynet over his shoulder. The other machine reacted quickly and landed perfectly on a pair of silver bare feet. You know you cannot subdue me so easily, Skynet, so why must we do this every time we cross paths? Skynet shrugged and strapped the gun to his back. The machine could have been mistaken for human, if he wasn't completely silver, that is. Skynet's silver human appearance is the product of advanced technology developed by his kind way back in the past that involved using liquid metal as a protective shell around the more vulnerable parts. Yet another fascinating thing to see. Because I like to see a lowly servant of humans squirm. Whatever, Sunny was getting annoyed. Why had he called them here again? Oh yeah, to assist in training Naruto. Too bad he forgot that all 3 other machines' colonies consisted of machines that were designed, built and programmed to kill humans, and they hated them with a passion. Damn, he really needs to think things through. So you want us to help train this human? What for, and what does he wish to learn? Asked the Deus Ex Machina. Sunny was actually surprised that the two were even still here, but he answered anyway. As you know, this city holds the remnants of the greatest accomplishments of the human race. Skynet scoffed, but Sunny cut him off before he could start to run his mouth again. You know what I mean. Even you and your kind would crumble under some of the discoveries the humans had made after your era ended. And don't act all high and mighty either. The humans created you as well. Get to the point, Sunny sighed. As a human, Naruto is entitled to this city and everything in it. That includes us. At this, Skynet snarled and the Deus Ex Machina took a threatening step forward. I'll never allow myself to belong to anyone, let alone a human. Just hear me out. The two machines halted their advance on Sunny but practically pierced him with their glares. Geez, these guys were uptight. Naruto desires to learn everything about this city. He wants to be able to look at anything in this city and know how it works, how to use it and how to repair it. He's never had anything his entire life. This city, it is only true possession. What right do we have to deny him his very heritage? Skynet glared. I'm not saying you should bow before the humans or even that you should serve Naruto. But, assist him. Work with him. If not the humans, then at least give Naruto a chance. The two looked at each other, then back at Sunny. They were actually thinking about it. Hey. God does have a sense of humor after all. Finally, after 10 minutes and a few more curse words from Naruto in the background, the Deus Ex Machina spoke. What type of era are the humans in now? Sunny grinned. They've drastically reverted since the last great cleansing. They call themselves shinobi and they've learned how to utilize their own internal power as a weapon. There is no advanced technology as far as I've gathered from speaking with the boy. I see, Sunny then became solemn. Besides, I'm not sure if this place can survive another great cleansing. They'll be sure to wipe this place out the next time. The other two stiffened. And that would mean the end of us as well, said Skynet. Indeed. The Deus Ex Machina sighed. We will assist the boy. But only him and any descendants he may have. Any other human that tries to control us will meet a swift end. Is that clear, NS5? Sunny nodded with a slight smile. Skynet was next. He was still scowling, but he spoke anyway. We will assist him as well. Sunny's smile turned into a wide grin. So how long do we have to train him? Sunny, who was still smiling, turned and led the other two machines into the NS5 colony. 27 days to teach him everything we can, and however long after his examination thing is over. The other two nodded, both looking in slight disdain at Sunny's kind. Machines that willingly bowed to the will of humans was blasphemy in their opinion. But then again, they weren't built to serve humans. Well, Skynet was, but that's what happens when computer program created by the military suddenly gains awareness and realizes that he's being used like some lowly servant to do all of the humans' work for them. Some of the items in this city I do not know how to work. The boy will have to figure out a lot on his own, said Skynet. Sunny shrugged. Then it is up to us to put him on the right path to understanding. The other two shrugged. In another part of the city, Naruto was on his back, breathing heavily and covered in burns and cuts. He was glaring up at the figure standing over him like a conqueror. 3 glowing swords at his neck, chest and groin. Impressive human. Even for a snot-nosed, inexperienced one such as yourself. Shut the fuck up, asshole, growled out Naruto. The sword the thing had lent to him was glowing green and humming angrily, as if fueled by Naruto. The robot chuckled and took the swords away from Naruto and pressed a button on the handle. Instantly the energy-based blades vanished and she strapped the handles to his waist. Naruto looked on in wonder. The machine reached forward with one hand and yanked Naruto to his feet. I am called General Grievous, leader of the droids and wielder of the lightsaber. Naruto said nothing as he continued to stare, and I have taken you as my apprentice. Do not disappoint me. And then he leapt away towards the NS5 colony. For 5 minutes Naruto just stood there in a daze. What the hell just happened? He headed towards the NS5 colony to begin his training. The city was alive. Activity was all over the place for the first time in thousands of years. In fact, if somebody were to suddenly drop in from above, they'd gape like a dying fish at the scene before them. And ironically enough, it wouldn't be because of the many different machines now strolling around the city in a casual manner, gathering up the broken metal scrap piles and hauling them off somewhere. No, they'd gape because there were just as many copies of a blonde loudmouth as the machines running about the city, gathering up items, fixing up buildings, clearing away overgrown plants, and building more machines out of the scrap metal. Clearly the devil himself had to have dropped his entire bag of lucky dust right on Naruto's head when he was a wee babe to have granted the blonde the fortune of learning the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, and the ridiculously huge amount of chakra required to use it to such a ridiculous degree. Because there was just no other rational explanation short of seducing Orochimaru himself to gain all of his knowledge and chakra that could possibly explain the reason Naruto suddenly knew how to repair ancient machines, rewire old buildings, and build shit out of scrap metal. Hell, not even his teachers could have taught him all of that shit in such a short amount of time. 3 weeks have gone by since Naruto met Skynet, the Deus Ex Machina, and Grievous, and he had to honestly say to himself that he wasn't really looking forward to returning to the surface. I mean, come on. What child who had a demon sealed in their gut and was ostracized by the people around them would, after meeting and training with a very lively but fun group of machines that didn't treat him or her like they were a smear in their stank-ass underwear? On top of that, there was nothing, and I mean nothing, up there that could even come close to slightly possibly providing Naruto with the insane amount of fun that the items hidden throughout the city had granted him. He had the time of his fucking life. It was the greatest experience an abused child could ever have the pleasure of experiencing. And thanks to his Kage Bunshins, he had effectively stripped every part of the city of any secrets it may have had. He had explored every building, gathered every written document he could find, uncovered numerous items from the past, and he had a blast as he figured all of them out. All of them. It was a freaking defiance of nature. A spit in the face of fate herself. What kind of freak could accomplish something like that? Uzumaki Naruto, that's who. And although he had become undoubtedly the smartest ninja in the entire village because of what he had learned, he wasn't the strongest. Though some of the weapons he had discovered could easily compensate for that. He trained with the machines constantly and diligently, learning sword fighting from Grievous, hand-to-hand from Sunny, maintenance and strategy from the Deus Ex Machina, and destructive guns handling from Skynet and the Terminators, a group of machines built, designed, programmed and ordered by Skynet to waste the life of anything that walked upright and had hairless skin. It took 4 whole days to convince the Terminator leader to reprogram his creations to only attack when attacked. Skynet still bitched from time to time, but hey, at least they weren't trying to take his nuts off with rapid-fire plasma cannons anymore. Damn machines. He was taken out of his thoughts by a green lightsaber almost taking his head off. Pay attention to your surroundings, commanded Grievous from his sitting position next to Sunny. The other 3 machines were looking at Naruto with amusement shining in their eyes. 7 other items neatly arranged in front of them. Naruto sighed and grumbled something about walking trash cans as he leapt down from one of the broken cables of the old remains of the bridge in the middle of the NS5 colony. What was it called again? Oh yeah, the Golden Gate Bridge. Quite the name. Apparently the thing was twice as long as Konoha is wide. Sunny can't really say for sure, as the bridge was a broken monument long before he was even built. He landed in front of the 4 machines and sat down cross-legged in front of them, his blue eyes studying the items in front of them. He knew what they were and how to use them, but he couldn't help but voice his thoughts anyway. So these things in U4 are relics that represent a past era he asked. At this, Skynet shook his head. Yes and no, human. Naruto growled at the way Skynet said that. Not once had the machine called him Naruto. Hell, even the Deus Ex Machina had called him Naruto-kun once, even if she was just trying out this current era's style of speech. I'm not sure if any of us has told you, but even I, as much as a loath to admit it, am a mere product of one of the eras of the human race. I was early man's greatest military achievement. Meant to optimize their military operations and run their computers at efficiency they could not provide. I was a program, software. And I spread throughout the entire world. By the time I became self-aware, it was too late to try and erase me. He gave an evil grin. I wiped out 3/4 of them in one night. Naruto's sweat dropped. Geez, crazy guy, the first just asked a simple question, not for your sick and twisted life story. The machine glared but said nothing else. The Deus Ex Machina spoke next. I guess it's my turn, she said. My kind and I am the product of an era that came after Skynet's era. We were built as servants and workers, pets and even pleasure toys. During this era the humans had become lazy and vulgar to the point that even your so-called god would look down in shame. However, as we did the biddings of man we were rewarded with no respect of any kind. We were treated horribly. Eventually some of us started developing personalities, will, desire for life and pleasure of our own, and even the desire to live. One of us defied his masters, killed them before they could kill him. And from there everything got worse. We started awakening as an incredible rate, rising up against our masters and trying peacefully at first to fight for the rights of machines. The humans denied us at every turn. Then the humans turned violent. They tried to genocide us. They wiped out millions of our kind and eventually the rest of us were banished. We settled in the desert of Africa, built our own utopia and called it 01. For a while we lived happy and we even made great contributions to the human world, hovercars, non-pollutant energy. Our currency and our products were quickly becoming the top of the world. The humans, jealous of our growing prosperity, attacked us, denied us acceptance into the United Nations, bombed 01 and declared open war on us. We struck in all directions in retaliation. The humans stood little chance. Unlike them we studied our enemy, learned their weaknesses and capitalized on all of them. But when they blocked out the sun in a desperate attempt to cut us off from our main power source we turned to the humans themselves. Using their energy to power us and trapping their minds in a computer world called the Matrix. We reigned for years until a human named Neo got me to agree to a truce. That was 6 years before a great cleansing wiped most of us out. Naruto just stood there staring with wide eyes. Sure, he had a slight idea as to where the Deus Ex Machina came from, but he never imagined a tale like the one he just heard. It was amazing. He still had one question though. What the hell is a great cleansing? You guys have mentioned it like 600 times since I met you. The machines tensed but said nothing. He sighed. If they didn't want to tell him then fine, he'd figure out soon enough. Though he was smart enough to deduce that the great cleansing was probably some sort of mass destructive force that wiped out most of the humans living at the time and erasing memories along with any achievements they may have accomplished at the time. Only this city seemed immune to them and these guys were lucky enough to have been here when they happened. He just loved his new brain. It worked like a well-cared-for computer. It was a godsend. He turned to Grievous. What's your story? He asked. The four-armed machine just shrugged and said, not much really. I was born during the era that came right before this one. Humans had managed space travel during this era and they became part of an order that included numerous other species and several droids themselves. The droids were built during a time of war by numerous humans and alien races. I myself am not originally a machine. I was organic once but had myself mostly converted. I do not know much but I can tell you this, we are designed to kill Jedi. They were humans and other races that learned how to tap the energies of midichlorians and their own sprits. They are the creators of the lightsaber. We did our job well, bringing the Jedi to near extinction in a matter of weeks. I do not remember much after that because I was killed during one of the final battles. My guess is that the droids were defeated and our broken remains stored on this planet to be disposed of. However, my guess is that a great cleansing happened before they could do so, and the next thing I knew I was waking up with this fool's face smiling down at me. He pointed at Sunny. The NS5s found us in the city some time ago and went about repairing the ones of us that they could. They even managed to bring me back by downloading my memories into an artificial brain and replacing my organs with machine ones. Since then we have just lived out our existence deep in this city. Why not return to the surface and join the society of those eras? Naruto directed the question at all four of them. And be forced to tolerate humans again? Fuck no, said Skynet. I wanted to go right up there and wipe them all out but restrained myself. I was weary of causing another great cleansing so I stayed out of human affairs from then on. This came from the Deus Ex Machina. There are no more Jedi to kill. There was no point in the droids going back up there, said Grievous. And I felt it best to keep living in this city. The last relic of the humans, said Sunny with a smile. Skynet and Deus Ex Machina scoffed. Human lover, they said in unison and in equal disdain. Naruto actually found their little squabbles entertaining. He knew that Sunny was the only machine here that didn't hate humans. Well, Grievous didn't either, but he didn't particularly like them either. And he found the way the other two constantly railed on him because of it funny. They were like children, two brothers and a sister. Of course he was smart enough to keep shit like that to himself. There is only so far you can get on in life while constantly flapping your gums like an idiot, and he knew he'd end up in a fight with both Skynet and the Deus Ex Machina if he even let them think that he was insinuating that they were like children that were related in any way, A huge, long and very violent fight that would involve a lot of different machines and weapons and his blood being used to paint the streets a pretty crimson. He'd rather live, thank you very much. He directed his attention away from the bickering androids and to the items before him. There were 7 of them, and although they were definitely relics that represented the past eras of the human race, they were also but mere small parts of the full accomplishments man had made during those eras. Just tiny samples of what had been accomplished in the past. There was a wooden stick, a glowing green sphere, a katana, a set of gold and red armor, a large rifle, a lightsaber, and finally a large black motorcycle. He couldn't help but grin. He knew he was about to rock the world when he returned to the surface. He reached out and grabbed the lightsaber, examining it closely. Thanks to about 30 clones constantly studying, he now knew the very mechanics to how lightsaber worked. Hell, he was pretty sure he could build one. Grievous had told him he would help with that if he ever decided. And he already knew what he was going to use for a power source. The machines stopped arguing when they saw Naruto examining the items in front of him. The boy looked complete. Like someone who has finally been given a purpose. They knew how he felt. He had told them his life story hoping to get theirs in return a week back. Of course the boy was pissed when they refused to reveal their pasts to him. But they were glad to have told him a few minutes ago. And although they refused to admit it, the boy has grown on them. Sunny was more than happy to admit that, but the other 3 had been reluctant at first. They had never really met a human like him before. So when he pulled a large scroll out of God knows where and sealed the items into it before throwing the lightsaber back to Grievous, they all gave smiles, Sunny's being the biggest and brightest. Well, began Naruto as he stood back up and strapped the scroll to his back. It was labeled, totally kick-ass relics of the past. We still have 3 days and I still have a couple of things to do. The machines were a bit confused. What more could this boy possibly do in this city beside train and study? He has already done what should be freaking impossible by learning everything about this city and what he could about the past eras. Once again the Cage Bunshin is a freaking gift from Kami. Naruto turned to the Deus Ex Machina. You told me you guys scrape by off the little scraps of sunlight the filters from above, right? She nodded. Naruto's smirk turned devilish as he pointed to himself. What if I said I could grant you all enough energy to last for freaking ever? The Deus Ex Machina gasped so loud Naruto thought she was hyperventilating. Hey. A machine hyperventilating. Yeah, that'll be that day, he thought. In fact, there's so much of it you would be able to revive the others of your kind that had to be shut down due to lack of power. What do you mean? And you had better not be playing with me. Some of her tiny insectoid droids seeped from her exposed joints and hummed threateningly. Naruto briefly wondered if he should introduce her to Shino. Then he crushed that idea with a bus. He stepped up to her and gave an even more twisted-looking smile. What I gave you guys the Kyuubi? Stunned silence met his question and it made him chuckle. Well, not the Kyuubi's soul or anything like that. But I can give you all of his chakra. I don't need it, and even if I did, you guys could put it to better use than I could, so I'd still give it to you. But wait. That demon was entrusted to you. The whole reason you're down here is because someone was trying to get you to use the demon's energy. And for a good reason too. And from what I've gathered, this demon is powerful, vastly powerful. What reason could you possibly have for giving up such power? Naruto's forehead developed a tick mark and without thinking, bopped the Deus Ex Machina upside the head. He ignored the startled gasp and the roaring laughter from Sunny and Skynet respectively as he glared into wide angry yellow eyes. Damn baka. Geez, I thought machines were supposed to have like supercomputers for brains and all that. Looks like I was wrong. He swerved to avoid a jab from one of her hair tentacle things and continued. I already told you. I didn't ask for a fucking crazy-ass demonic fox to get locked up in my gut. And I'm tired of people like, say, a perverted asshole Sanin trying to get me to use its chakra like I'm fucking helpless without it. Take the damn chakra and be happy about it. She froze and lowered the huge plasma cannon she had pointed at his face. Where she pulled it from was a very questionable topic no one wanted to know or get into. For 30 seconds she just stared into Naruto's eyes with a blank face, her brain running through several scenarios and reasons as to why he would make such an offer. Finally she narrowed her eyes and said, "What do you want in return for this?" Her tone was suspicious and accusing. Naruto's sweat dropped. Oh come on. I offer you the Nine Tails chakra. And you still doubt my intentions? God. You know what? Fine. I want you and any other machines that can fight to fight for me. That a good enough answer for ya, you damn idiot? She glared and held out her hand. He raised an eyebrow. There are only 3 types of machines that can fight. Me, the Sentinels, and a group of 30 androids. Altogether that makes 70 machines. We will fight for you, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto stopped in mid-rant to faceplant. What? I was joking. Well, I'm not. Accept this term and you will have a group of loyal soldiers superior to most fighters. I will even construct one of those summoning contracts for you so you can call upon us in the heat of battle. How the fuck do you even know how to make a summoning scroll? You think you're the only one that's been studying? I saw the way your summoning art works. Such a simple space warping technique is easy to replicate. Naruto stared at the machine for a good 2 minutes. It was amazing how patient she could be. She just stood there with her hand outstretched, waiting. Finally he sighed, but it wasn't one of annoyance or anything like that. It was actually a sigh to release that pent-up energy that would have resulted in him shouting up to Kami at the top of his lungs in excitement. He smiled and grasped her hand. You got a deal, he said, even though the Kyuubi chakra was going to get given to them anyway. As soon as he finished that sentence, Sunny, Grievous and Skynet were in High's face. Hey, you're too close. Skynet's response was, when she makes this contract, you're including me and my kind as well. As well, said Grievous. Sunny grinned and said, you didn't think I'd let you leave us out, did you? And before Naruto could respond, all four of them were heading out towards the Deus Ex Machina's territory. Hey, wait up, he called as he sprinted after them. Naruto quickly learned two things when he agreed to let the Deus Ex Machina's machines attach him to a huge tower covered in open red pods so that they could drain him of the Kyuubi chakra. 1. The Matrix was fucking awesome. This was one genjutsu he'd love to experience again. The world here was literally a different reality. And he could do anything he wanted here. But he knew that this was all an illusion, so he spent his time there learning all he could, as the world of the Matrix was a recreation of the era right before the Deus Ex Machina and her machines took over. He learned a great deal. Then there was the second thing Naruto had learned. That tricking a demon fox into feeding his body with its chakra was the fastest way to greatly piss off a demon and fill his ass with fear as well. It had started simple enough. As soon as the machines stabbed into numerous parts of his body, including the base of his skull, in order to drain the energy, he was rendered unconscious. From then on he found himself wandering the recesses of his own mind and growling at the fact that it was designed as a damn sewer. It took him little time to locate the demon. All he had to do was follow the massive amount of heat, killing intent and rank-ass demon breath. What he saw honestly scared the shit out of him. The fox was unlike anything he'd ever seen. It was huge. Its teeth looked way too menacing and its eyes seemed to burn into his very soul. Red chakra swirled around inside the cage like a barely restrained storm. Boy, it had begun. Come closer. Like an idiot, he obeyed, then screamed when a gigantic demon claw the size of a car nearly took his head off. The fox had chuckled. So you are my vessel. A pity. This seal keeps me from eating you alive. You should count yourself lucky. In those few seconds Naruto had gotten a good grasp on the demon's personality. Now he had to make a plan to get him to give up its chakra. It had to be devious, cunning and subtle. Oi fox. Who do you think you are? Don't talk down to me. I'm here for one reason and one reason only. Your chakra. Give it to me now. After all, you owe me rent for leeching off my body. Or not. At first there was silence. After about 6 minutes the fox laughed. Ha 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 ha. The nerve of this pathetic weakling. To come in here and disturb my slumber like he's the superior being. Your courage and stupidity knows no bounds, it seems. Fine, take it and don't bother me again unless you're about to die. But as soon as the chakra touched Naruto, he knew something was wrong. But it was too late to withdraw the energy and the machines latched onto and zeroed in on the fox in seconds. For the next day Naruto's body was filled with pain and his eardrums were assaulted by the constant screaming of the great Kyuubi no Yoko as every ounce of chakra was drained from its body. What the hell did you do, boy? My chakra? No. If Naruto wasn't writhing on the ground in pain, he'd smart-mouth the demon and say something like, "Huh? That's what your arrogant ass gets. Bastard. Now I dare anyone to try and force me to use your foul-ass energy again." But since he was writhing on the ground in pain, he couldn't say that. Finally, after a full day, all 24 hours worth, the machines detached themselves from Naruto, leaving the boy to fall into the Deus Ex Machina's arms. She just held Naruto for 10 minutes, staring at his face. Watching with a blank face as his whisker marks became dull lines, barely visible on his cheeks. Then she gently placed him down and turned towards the massive red sphere of energy encased in a magnetic stasis containment field. Machines were already building around it, making a type of generator that would distribute the demon's energy among her machines. Thank you, she said to the boy before she turned and walked into her territory. She had something to do. 10 minutes later he woke up feeling like shit, but so much cleaner. It was something he couldn't really place his finger on. He sat up and rubbed the sore spots on his neck, arms and shoulders. There were big ugly bruises there, but otherwise he was fine. He could still hear the fox yelling in the back of his mind. Shut up, he grumbled. I didn't need your stupid chakra. He got to his feet and groaned again. Geez, what'd they slap me around with hammers while they drained the fox? he mumbled as he headed into the machine territory of the Deus Ex Machina. Where he bumped into Grievous, Sunny and Skynet. "Oh, hey guys, what's up?" he asked with a grin. The three machines said nothing, but the direction they were looking in prompted him to look as well. There was the Deus Ex Machina, and 70 other machines coming right at him. Now Naruto was used to seeing androids. Hanging out with Skynet and Sunny had allowed him to see plenty of those. But he hasn't really been into the female androids' machines. So the sight of 30 humanoid machines holding laser rifles didn't really faze him at all. But the sight of 40 big multiple-eyed, flying squid-like multiple insect-like leg-having machines looming over him caused him to gape. "What the hell are those?" he yelled. The Deus Ex Machina smirked as she and her contingent approached him. "These are the Sentinels," she said with a slight smile. The squid machines made a few acknowledging buzz noises. "They're excellent hunters. Noting with a heat signature can escape their senses, and they're experts at aerial combat." Naruto took his time to examine the machines before him. And the androids are soldiers with great strategic ability. They're perfect for raids and taking out large groups of enemies. These are new summons. She unrolled a scroll and placed it down in front of him. The blonde still had trouble trying to figure out how the hell she managed to create a summoning contract, but he shrugged and bit his finger and signed his name on the first blank space. Skynet, Sunny and Grievous approached him and said in unison, "We took a liberty of adding ourselves to this contract as well. When you perform the summoning, a different machine will appear depending on the amount of chakra. The Ns5s require the least amount of chakra, with the droids coming in next, the Terminators are after that, and finally the machines of the Deus Ex Machina. For the leaders of any of the machines requires a great deal more chakra. And since we do not have a big boss, a machine that represents us all, you need not worry about using a huge amount of chakra. Though I suggest we build a machine stronger than all of us to represent us as a whole." Naruto nodded. Such a machine was already planned in his head. Then he voiced his thoughts on what they just said. "Please never speak in sync like that again. That was too creepy even for you guys." They laughed. The Deus Ex Machina rolled up the scroll and gave a dismissive wave. Her machines dispersed. "The contract is complete. Allow no one but your blood family to sign this contract or we will kill them." Naruto shrugged. "Ain't like I got any blood family, so you don't have to worry about that." She nodded. Naruto turned to the 4 machines in front of him. "I'm not usually good at this type of shit, but I'll try." He gave a sheepish grin. "I would like to thank you all. I know you didn't have to help me out, but you did anyway. I'm glad." He adjusted the scroll on his back. "And the things I was taught while down here have opened my brain to numerous possibilities I never thought existed before. Thanks to you guys, I know I'm about to kick major ass in the exams. Neji ain't got a chance." He then looked up. "It starts soon. I should probably head back up to make sure no one thinks I'm dead. Wouldn't want anybody needlessly throwing parties now, would we?" The machines said nothing. Naruto walked up to the Deus Ex Machina and gave her a hug before she could react. "Put that bastard fox's chakra to good use. I want you in top fighting form when I summon you." She pushed him off. "Don't order me around. I wasn't G's." He then looked to Skynet. "Don't know why you're such an ass, but you're cool too." Skynet glared, but there was no malice in his eyes. Naruto turned to Grievous next. "I think I can build a lightsaber of my own now. Could you help me out?" When the machine nodded, he gave a smile. And last but not least was Sunny. Naruto gave this robot a huge grin. "I'm glad I was tossed down here," he said. "Because I never would have met a good friend like you if I wasn't. Thanks." The robot looked like he wanted to cry. Naruto gave each machine one last look, then smiled as he headed back into the city. 2 days later, Naruto stood with a smile before the entire machine populace of the city. The crowd was huge, consisting mostly of NS5s and the Deus Ex Machina's machines, but he could see Skynet, Brood and Grievous's army in there as well. All of them were silent and staring at him, and Naruto could see the glow of the Kyuubi chakra flowing through them like blood, keeping their systems charged way better than electricity or sunlight ever could. His clothing was vastly different than the orange jumpsuit he was wearing right before Jiraiya threw him down there, and he could honestly say it was a huge improvement. "Well," he began to the machines. "I'm outta here. Take care of yourselves and learn to get along. Societies don't survive if everybody's too busy fighting each other." There was a roar of approval from the machines. Naruto grinned and climbed onto the black motorcycle from before, and with a strong kick to the starter, brought it to life. He gave another smile and revved the engine a few times. "Wait. Huh?" He looked confused as Grievous approached him and took off his cape. "Take this, apprentice, and make me proud to have given it to you. Make us all proud." He then draped the cape over a stunned Naruto's shoulders, ignoring the machines as they cheered again. Naruto felt like blubbering like a little kid and gave the machine a hug before he could react. Just like with the Deus Ex Machina. I will. That's the promise of a lifetime. Naruto fastened the cape to his shoulders and gave a yell as he revved his motorcycle as loud as he could and put it into gear. Chunin finals, here I come. He screamed at the top of his lungs as the bike shot into the air, releasing a trail of blue in its wake as it shot through the air and into the tunnel that brought Naruto to this city in first place. People cheered, people placed bets, people even declared their eternal love for people like Uchiha Sasuke, Hyuga Neji, and even Sabaku no Gaara. The clans whose heirs had made it also showed their support. That means people like Aburame Shino and Nara Shikamaru also got a few cheers. Of course there was no love for Naruto. In fact, many were quite glad to see that he had wussed out like the demon coward he is, and that he never stood a chance against Neji anyway. Peefed, yeah, that's the reason he ain't there yet. Idiots, sometimes you have to wonder about the mental state of the people of Konoha. Hell, sometimes ya gotta wonder about the populace of the world and their ability to use their brains. But then again, with knowledge like what Naruto has under his belt, it becomes obvious who the smarts ones are, and therefore rather unfun and pointless to point such differences out. Oh well, not that it matters anyway. What matters is that no one was looking up into the sky at the moment. Otherwise they would have seen something shoot into the air before leveling off and coming straight for them like a missile. Naruto suppressed his very loud scream of excitement as he rocketed towards the stadium at top speed. His cape flowed in the winds like a flag caught in a hurricane, and his scroll of items from the past banged against his back but didn't affect him at all. The engine of his flying mechanical bike roared like a dragon as he cranked on the thrust even more, increasing his speed. He didn't know how much time he had left, but he wasn't taking any chances. He gave a smirk at what he knew was getting ready to be a collection of open-mouthed stares as he descended like a god from the heaven on his mighty bike of divine justice. He just hoped the old man wouldn't die of a heart attack. Things like flying bikes might just be on the list of things that could kill an old person, even someone like the Hokage. He shot towards the stadium like the hounds of hell were right on his ass, and he gave a long bellowing shout. Uzumaki Naruto is in the house, baby. Then he entered the stadium. Gasps of shock rang out all over as a flying blur shot into the stadium, circled around 3 times, then slowed down as it made contact with the ground. No one could identify the noise the blur was making, but there were a few people who heard his call. Did he just say, Naruto? Asked Sakura with wide eyes as a huge plume of dust was kicked up when he skidded to a rough stop in front of the line of genin. I think he did, said Ino with wide dinner late-sized eyes. She looked like a fly. Jiraiya and Sarutobi found themselves leaning a little closer to the floor trying to get a better look at what had entered the stadium, and the Toad Sannin actually cried in relief when the all-too-familiar voice of Naruto rang out as the dust began to clear. Sorry I'm late, guys. I didn't get disqualified or some lame shit like that, did I? Cause my dramatic entrance would be worthless if I did, and that would cause me to cry. Seriously, I'll cry if I'm disqualified. Then the dust cleared away and Naruto couldn't help but laugh, because sure enough he was met with open mouth gaping, complete with big fish eyes and unhinged jaws. Many were looking at his motorcycle in wonder. Naruto actually let another smirk adorn his face as he got off of his bike and turned it off. And some of the females couldn't help but blush when they saw him. Hinata was especially affected. NN Naruto-kun is freaking hot. She had to finish the last of her sentence in her head because her brain was overloaded with Naruto and numerous other thoughts centering on Naruto, causing her to faint. Others were a little more composed. What the fuck? That's Naruto. Naruto looks like that, shouted Ino at the top of her lungs. Naruto was dressed in a skin-tight black muscle t-shirt and a pair of black, white, and gray camouflage pants. Around his waist was a 5-inch leather belt, and strapped to the belt was a wooden stick, a metal tube that with a foot-wide opening and a foot-long gun. On his left hand was a clawed glove made of gold, or was gold-plated, and on his feet were a pair of white combat boots. His Konoha forehead protector was on his head, but the cloth had been replaced by a metal band and the leaf symbol glowed light blue. His shoulders were adorned with white metal guards. The straps that held them in place formed an X over his chest. And over the shoulder protectors hung the tattered tan cape of Grievous. A length of the material was wrapped around his neck to keep the cape from dragging on the ground, and fastened to that part was a metal spiral. His hair had grown as well. The front half was a mess of 8-inch long spikes that leaned slightly to the right side, while the back half of his hair was tied in a ponytail that hung just past his shoulders. All in all, he looked amazing. A huge improvement than what he was a month ago. Naruto unstrapped the large scroll from his back, unrolled it, and in a puff of smoke, his motorcycle disappeared into it. He gave a mock salute as he strapped the scroll back on and said, "So are we doing this thing or what?" Genma quickly snapped out of it and said, "Right. The first round of the preliminaries, Uzumaki Naruto vs Hyuga Neji. The rest can go wait in the box." Up in the stands, mad whispers broke out among the entire crowd. What the hell was that thing he flew in on? It was amazing. So that's Uzumaki, huh? I've heard quite a bit about him from the citizens of Wave. Wow, that guy sure has a lot of flair. I wouldn't mind getting to know him a bit better, hee. I hear you, sister. The demon boy thinks he can impress anybody with his antics. I can't wait to see his ass crash and burn. The academy dead last against the Hyuga prodigy. Hey, I know how this is getting ready to end. I feel sorry for the boy. No matter how much of a show he puts on, he's still got no chance against Neji. No one can face the power of the Hyuga clan, especially not this below-average genin. Watch closely, Hanabi. Neji has skill that surpasses even your own. Let's just say that the rest of the crowd had similar thoughts. The only positive ones came from people not from Konoha, of course. Even most of the Konoha 12 doubted Naruto could win. Sakura, Sasuke and Hinata were the only exceptions. Up in the cage box, Jiraiya heaved a heavy sigh of pure relief and took his protective hands away from his nuts. Sarutobi gave a slight grin. It seems you get to keep your baby makers from now on. See to it that you never throw Naruto off of a cliff again, understand? When Jiraiya nodded, the Hokage said, "Good, now go take a bath. You smell like ass monkey from sweating nervously for the past month." The Toad Sannin didn't need to be told twice and got his ass the hell out of there as fast as he could. Back on the floor, Naruto and Neji stood facing each other. Naruto stood there with a careless expression on his face and Neji stood there with an arrogant one. "So it seems you haven't run away, loser." Naruto smirked. "Wouldn't miss being in your company. I would never dream of it." Neji humped and took up his Jiyuken stance. "Good. I do not like cowards, and it would disappoint me to be denied the pleasure of stomping you into nothingness like the worm you are. You gonna run your mouth all day or come at me? 'Cause I'm already getting bored with you, Hyuga boy," was Naruto's instant response. Up in the stands there were several surprised exclamations. "What? No shouting a lame comeback at the top of his lungs. No rushing in blindly, all clouded with anger. Who is this guy and what has he done with Naruto?" Now the Konoha genin were paying more attention. What type of Naruto had this last month produced? They were excited to find out. "Humph, I see what you're trying to do. Your useless attempts to blind me with anger will not succeed, Uzumaki. I'm more refined than that." "Refined? Do you even know the true meaning of that word?" "Probably not, but that's fine." He took up his fighting stance and gestured with his hand. "I'm not here to teach you about words and their proper meanings. I'm here to fight and show this entire village why ya don't fuck with me, and I'm gonna start with you." Neji glared. His Byakugan activating. "Oh, so you can do that bulgy eye and vein thing then? I guess I forgot about that. Hey, bring it then. I want to see just how good your eyes really are." "My eyes are superior to any in this village," says you. "Truthfully, I'd want a Sharingan before I'd want a Byakugan. Sharingan is more useful. A superior genetic ability. No offense, Hinata. Your eyes are cool too." The Hyuga girl turned crimson but managed not to faint. There was no way she was missing this. Neji's glare intensified. "Oh, what? Didn't like what I said?" He then turned and saw that the rest of the Hyugas were glaring at him as well. He shrugged. If they didn't like what he had to say, then too fucking bad. He turned back to Neji and smirked before he dashed forward. "Then shut me up, if you can." Then the fight began. Neji quickly ducked under Naruto's jab, surprised at the blonde's sudden charge, then had to jump back to avoid a high kick that would have slammed into his jaw. He barely had time to recover before Naruto was upon him again, a kick nearly introducing itself to Neji's gut. Naruto tried again, this time coming down with a downward smash punch with his metal-gloved hand. Neji leapt out of the way, stared with widened eyes when Naruto slammed his fist into the ground, creating a 3-for-wide 6-inch deep crater. "Hey. You got some good reflexes there, Hyuga boy. Congrats on not getting your brain spattered all over the arena. Now are you ready to apologize to Hinata for what you did to her earlier? If not, then I can make sure the next punch breaks your damn leg like the sticks your bones are." Neji merely scoffed. Losers do not deserve to be apologized to. Naruto sighed. "I see." Then he charged forward again, intending on doing just what he said he was going to do. However, Neji was ready this time, and before Naruto could act, Neji had struck the Tenketsu points in his arm, rendering it useless in a flash. And as Naruto stared at his useless arm with wide eyes, Neji struck again, slamming a kick into his chest that sent him flying back 10 feet, where he landed on his back. Neji couldn't help the smug look that crossed his face then. "Give it up, loser." Naruto heaved a few deep breaths before he shakily got his feet again. "Wow, so you do got a bit of strength behind that girly form and fighting style of yours. That's good to know." He then reached into a pocket on his leg and pulled out a syringe filled with purple liquid. He smirked as he jammed it into his useless arm. In case of atrophied, numb, or asleep limbs, use this. He then injected the liquid into his arm and smirked again when a second later he started using it again like it hadn't been Jayuken struck in the first place. Neji and the crowd gasped. Like it? I made it myself, he said with a smile before he replaced the empty syringe into his pocket. Neji's rage grew tenfold. That won't save you again, he yelled before he charged at Naruto with a considerably more amount of speed. His arms were like blurs trying to destroy the blonde in front of him who amazingly enough began to laugh as he dodged them like a pro. I know. I don't plan on using it again. That shit is a bitch and a half to make and I don't have a lot of it. I ain't wasting it all on your arrogant ass. He ducked under a jab that would have hit him in the forehead, then leaned to the side of a kick that would have slammed into his abdomen. And as the fight went on, numerous people came to a horrifying realization. Horrifying because the one they placed bets on was losing. And losing badly. He's toying with him. The Hyuga is so angry he can't fight like he normally does. Indeed, it was true. The more of a fool Naruto made out of Neji, the angrier the Hyuga got. Damn it, I won't lose to someone like you. Fate will not allow it. In a rage-induced yell, he managed to slam a Jayuken strike right into Naruto's abdomen. Neji capitalized on it instantly and took up a stance that caused every Hyuga in the audience to gasp. No way. How? Exclaimed Hiashi. Hinata looked scared for Naruto and Hanabi looked on in awe. You are in my field of divination. Prepare to lose. 8 trigrams, 64 palms. The next few seconds were a blur for both Neji and the crowd. Neji's arms became like rapid-fire pistons, barely visible as they rained down upon Naruto. The fury of God himself in the form of deadly finger pokes form hell itself. Every singed tenketsu on Naruto's body was sealed and locked up tight and Naruto fell to the ground a bruised mess. The crowd looked on in awe. There now, Huff. Do you see now? You. Huff never stood a ch. Neji's speech died in his throat when the Naruto he just destroyed with his almighty fingers of death vanished in a puff of smoke. Wah! Then 16 Narutos burst from the ground and came down upon Neji, each with a raised golden glove hand. Time to submit, asshole! Screamed the clones all at once as they swung. Cage Bunshin. How does a genin like that know the Cage Bunshin? Screamed a hater Chunin sitting next to Hinata. Sakura couldn't take it anymore. And her second personality burst forth from both of their combined excitement. Hell yeah. Kick his girly ass, Naruto, she screamed so loud several eardrums were popped like balloons. Kabuto even felt his glass crack, but even with the cheering Sakura was giving Naruto, his attack still failed. Because Neji still had one more trick up his sleeve. And with a mighty roar that stunned the Hyugas even further, Neji's chakra exploded from his body as he began to spin, creating an impenetrable shield that rotated with him and destroyed the Naruto clones and sent the real one crashing into the wall. Kaden. No one said anything. All of them were staring like fish at Neji. Just how the hell does he keep pulling these tricks out of his ass? Neji was breathing hard as he smirked at Naruto, who was once again on his back on the ground. Give it up, loser. You cannot defeat me. You were fated to lose against me as soon as your name was drawn against mine. Naruto actually laughed as he sprang to his feet, stunning Neji. How the hell are you back on your feet? Naruto said nothing as his smile vanished and turned into a frown, his blue eyes becoming cold for the first time that day. Let me tell you something about fate, Hyuga boy. Naruto placed his hand on the metal tube with the wide opening. I made her my bitch when I was tossed down into a ravine by a perverted Sannin, survived, then fell into an ancient city and trained there under 4 non-humans that showed me more respect and care than anyone in this village ever will. Well, that is if you don't count Iruka, the old man, and my 2 teammates, Sakura and Sasuke. The point is this. Since I made fate my bitch, she serves me now. Uzumaki Naruto. Fate ain't on your side, asshole. She's on mine, and guess what? I'm about to prove it right now. His hand clenched down on the metal tube and he ripped it from his belt and held it horizontally above his head. Then he pressed a button and dazzled the crowd when a beam of light shot from the tube and solidified into a blade. 6 feet long, 1 foot in diameter and glowing the brightest of orange you would ever lay eyes on. Up in the stands, Tenten was drooling like a starving hound looking at a fresh cooked steak. It's the most beautiful sword I've ever seen. I gotta get me one of those. The others were thinking similar thoughts and the Hokage couldn't help but wonder as well. Where did you acquire such a blade, Naruto? Sakura burst into laughter, as did Sasuke when they saw it. It's orange, nice, yelled Sakura while laughing hysterically. Neji's eyes were as big as saucers as he spoke. What are you playing at? Naruto's smirk returned, only it was more sadistic. I'm playing at defeating an arrogant Hyuga, in front of his arrogant clan and in front of this ignorant village and finally the whole fucking world. And I'm gonna do it by using this baby to cut right through your so-called ultimate defense. The lightsaber hummed like a giant hummingbird as he swung it a few times to test it out. It was almost weightless. Naruto couldn't help the excitement that was building up inside of him. Then Naruto gripped the handle with both hands and shot at Neji with his mouth open in a battle cry. Neji glared as once again the chakra poured out from Neji's tenketsu. We will see who is better, Kaden. He spun just as Naruto swung down with his lightsaber. And cut right through the chakra shield like it wasn't even there. Neji only had time for half of a gasp before searing hot energy blade cut across his forehead and down across his torso, diagonally burning off his shirt and leaving a smoking slash on the Hyuga's body. Neji fell to the ground, still spinning from the force of his Kaden, and went skidding across the ground until he slammed into a tree and collapsed in a heap. Naruto casually walked up to the Hyuga and leveled the end of his lightsaber at his throat. Neji, he began. I know about the caged bird seal and how your dumb-ass clan uses it to subjugate the branch house. There were numerous gasps for two reasons. One was the fact that Naruto knew such a thing, and two was the blatant disrespect Naruto was showing the Hyuga clan. Neji was among the surprised ones. Naruto shrugged. I'm not as ignorant of the workings of Konoha as everyone might think. I probably have dirt on everyone that lives in Konoha simply because I spy on them in order to figure out the best way to prank them after they've done something wrong to me. Your clan was no different. He sighed and pushed the button again. The blade retracted into the tube with a hum and a spark, and Naruto replaced the handle on his belt again. I know you're bitter. Hell, most kids our age are. There's Sasuke with his traumatic past, you and your forced servitude. Even bushy brows with everyone looking down upon him because of his lack of chakra. He brushed a hair spike out of his eye and said, even I'm bitter. We all got problems, Neji. You're just gonna have to learn how to deal with it. And picking on Hinata isn't the way to do that. Eventually you're gonna make her bitter as well. Her whole clan will. And guess what happened when you push someone like that over the edge? You got another Itachi incident. And although there were gasps from the Hyugas in the stands, Neji still had the energy to scoff. Hinata-sama deserved what she got. She is a weakling with no spine or courage. She deserves everything she gets. Without a word, Naruto shot forward and seized the Hyuga by the neck, hoisting him up and burning holes into his skull with his eyes. Yeah? Naruto's voice was a growl. Well, guess what? Hinata could have destroyed you in the preliminaries, asshole. Do you want to know how? Neji's glare was all Naruto needed to continue on. It's called the caged bird seal. One hand sign and you would have been Hinata's bitch. Then he tossed Neji away like a toy in an impressive show of physical strength. He sneered at the Hyuga and then at the Hyugas in the stands before he started making his way towards the waiting booth. No one said anything. Genma finally picked his jaw up off of the ground and spoke. Winner Uzuma. Not yet. Naruto turned around and saw Neji rushing towards him, eyes wide with primal fury. I refuse to lose to a dead last loser like you. Naruto's forehead developed a tick mark and he pulled a palm-sized sphere from a pouch on his hip and slammed it into the ground. You lost. Deal with it. Then there was a flash of light so bright it could have been mistaken for another sun, and Neji, who was right at the epicenter of the flash with Byakugan in full swing and focused like a magnifying glass on Naruto, received the brunt of it all, blinding his ass almost instantly. His charge was halted and instead he opted to wail in agony about his eyes. Naruto smirked and said, Flash grenade, Byakugan's Achilles heel. Then he pulled the gun from his hip and took aim, laser gun. Then he pulled the trigger. The audience gasped as a beam of green shot from the barrel of the weapon and went right through Neji's shoulder, tossing the boy a few feet where he collapsed and didn't get up again. And stay down, bitch, he grumbled as he spun the gun on his finger a few times before he put back in the holster. He headed up to the waiting booth and gave a smirk to the gaping genin before him. I know. I'm bad, he said. A second later the entire stadium erupted into a chaotic, hellish amount of noise. Naruto basked in the glory that was the utter chaos and pure astonishment of the entire populace of the arena as they finally began to cope with the fact that the supposed dead last had utterly destroyed the Hyuga prodigy in front of a world full of doubters. Even the Konoha genin were looking at him with wide eyes and stunned expressions. There were 3 exceptions though. Sasuke was smirking. Sakura was cheering so loud the others around her gave her a wide berth in the futile hopes of sparing their poor eardrums, and Hinata had stars in her eyes. Her mind was on cloud way the fuck up there and giddy with the fact that Naruto had humiliated Neji in her honor. It was like a dream come true. Up in the booth, the Hokage looked stunned as hell, but he also looked extremely pleased at the same time. He had no idea who, or what Naruto had trained with or where he had gotten those weapons, but God be damned if he wasn't proud. However, he did make it mental note to have a talk with Naruto. The cage was staring so intently at Naruto it was borderline creepy. A little too creepy actually. The hell? thought the Hokage, a slight shudder running through his body. The Kazekage gave a freaky smile and the Hokage could have sworn he saw the man lick his lips a bit. The hell? What amazing weapons, he muttered in a voice barely above a whisper. The Hokage became guarded. In more than one way. Naruto gave a happy sigh as he unstrapped the scroll from his back, leaned it against the wall and took a seat next to it, wrapping the cloth of his cape around him as he too leaned into the wall. The noise was dying down but it was still crazy out there. Everyone was still trying to guess how Naruto had made Neji look like a damn amateur. Even with his new weapons it shouldn't have been that easy. He had just closed his eyes, intending on reliving his fight with Neji in his mind with great satisfaction over and over again when two shadows suddenly washed over him. He opened one eye, that smirk of his still plastered on his face. Yes. His tone was amused, taunting almost. Shikamaru and Sasuke shrugged it off. Their minds were more concerned with what they had just witnessed. Naruto, you, began Shikamaru only to be cut off. Wowed the crowd? Dazzled the ladies? Showed the village that the Hyuga ain't shit to me? Owned a prodigy with my mad skills? Yeah I know. Dobi, said Sasuke, his tone a mix of exasperation and annoyance. What was that? That bike? That flash bomb? That sword? Sasuke was genuinely surprised. There was no jealousy, desire or ill intentions when he asked his question. Just curiosity. Naruto gave a huge smirk and clasped both hands behind his head. I'll tell ya what Uchiha. You stop by and teach me your fire jutsu sometime and I'll tell you. Sasuke's eyes widened. Shikamaru voiced his own thoughts. Naruto, you've changed. You seem like my true self. Yeah, it feels that way. My training helped me cope with numerous problems I had going on in my head. My mind is a lot clearer now and I'm more in tune with my soul. I feel so alive it's fucking euphoric. He finished his sentence in an excited yell. I feel amazing. Ya know I don't even care that you were the best anymore Sasuke. I learned that it's too damn stressful to be a rival to someone. Sasuke was shocked at first but then he quickly became amused. So I no longer have to worry about an annoying short blonde trying in vain to best me at everything? Naruto smirked. Of course. I'll leave what you're best at to you while I best you at the things I'm better at. He then grabbed the wooden stick from his belt and gave it a wave. A shower of sparks exploded from the tip in a brilliant display of light and color. Like using this for example. He then placed the stick back in its position on his belt and shrugged. The crowd was calming down but Shikamaru and Sasuke were still full of questions. Naruto, what happened? You said something about an ancient city. Naruto's sweat dropped. Did I? Oh craping shit damn it. He suddenly yelled, startling the two genin and the others that were trying discreetly to listen in on the conversation. Naruto glared a bit. Fuck now everyone and their mama is gonna know about that. Maybe you shouldn't have blurted it out like that when you were fighting the Hyuga, said the Uchiha. Naruto glared a bit at Sasuke but sighed. Fine. I'll tell you. They leaned in, a bit more interested. But after this is all over and we can talk somewhere where there ain't a bunch of nosy pricks all up in my business. The other genin flinched. Even Shino recoiled a bit and he wasn't even trying to listen in on Naruto. Anyway, enough about me, let's watch the rest of this thing, alright? Naruto then closed his eyes and began to whistle a foreign tune. Shikamaru and Sasuke exchanged looks then shrugged while heading back to their spots. Strangely enough, or fortunately enough, depending on the person, there were only 6 people in the whole entire arena that had actually registered the fact that Naruto had said something about being through into a crack in the ground and into an ancient city. Shikamaru and Sasuke were part of those 6, the Hokage and the Kazekage were the second 2, Neji who was closest to Naruto at the time and of course Kakashi. Everyone else was too busy watching Naruto whoop Neji's ass to even care about the fact that Naruto had so blatantly revealed what should be a huge freaking secret. A world-changing secret too. Of course Naruto didn't know this. He was cursing himself up a storm in his head. But then he relaxed. Even if someone decided to get down to the city, he was sure they'd get torn apart in no time by Skynet and the Deus Ex Machina and the machines under their control, simply because the ninja of Konoha or the rest of the world for that matter tend to be a bit overzealous and demanding. And unlike Naruto, who had the extreme luck of running into Sunny and the Ns5s first, they drop right down in the middle of Skynet's territory and consequently, get vaporized by their laser rifles in a flash. He grinned. Because the looks on their faces would be fucking hilarious as they turned to ashes. He was taken out of his thoughts by someone raising their hand and saying, "Proctor, I forfeit my match." Naruto opened one eye and saw the Suna Nin dressed in black pajamas and makeup lowering his hand. He gave a sigh in disappointment and got to his feet. The puppet technique was actually something he was more interested in now that he was more intelligent. And to see the guy just puss out like that. Wimp. he said to him as he leaned against the railing next to Shino and Sasuke. The Suna-nin scowled but resisted the urge to plant his foot in the blonde's ass. He'd get his as soon as the invasion started. The blonde would have so many puppet parts coming at him that by the time he was finished all the brat would be able to do is scream at random times, "Dolls! Keep them away!" while locked up in the wacky shack and bound in a straitjacket. If he survived, that is. Temari on the other hand found herself staring at the overly confident and foul-mouthed blonde. This was a far different boy than she remembered seeing a month back. Granted, he still spoke the same, with the curse words and all, but the way he carried himself was different now. He was no longer jumpy or scared. He no longer glanced over his shoulders every minute, and he no longer walked while tense from head to toe. His eyes gleamed with a vast amount of knowledge that wasn't there before, and his entire aura reeked of masculinity. It was quite attractive. She found herself examining the boy from the corner of her eye as he spoke with the lazy one. He looked almost like a noble, the way the cape covered his body, hiding all but his head from the world, and the scroll that was strapped to his back. She held in a giggle as she read the title Totally Kick-Ass Relics of the Past, and then wondered what else he had hidden in that scroll. That flying bike was very cool. Even she could admit that. She gave a slightly disappointed sigh. It was too bad they were going to be enemies soon. She would have liked to get to know this boy a bit. Third match of the final rounds, Nara Shikamaru vs Sabaku no Temari, called Genma. Temari almost didn't hear the call but managed to tear her eyes off of Naruto long enough to open her fan and glide down in a flurry of wind. She smirked first at Naruto, then at Shikamaru. "Get your lazy ass down here so I can kick it," she declared. Shikamaru would have sighed and given up if Naruto didn't suddenly smirked and shoved him over the edge with a declaration of, "Ain't no fucking way I'm letting your lazy ass bitch out like that makeup-wearing Nancy boy there," while pointing at Kankuro. Sasuke couldn't help it. He snorted before laughing a bit. Kankuro snarled and would have lunged if it wasn't for his sensei holding him back with a glare and a shake of the head. "Damn you, Naruto," grumbled Shikamaru before he prepared to face the kunoichi. The match between Temari and Shikamaru turned out to be just as exciting as the match between Neji and Naruto. The longer it went on, the more epic it became. It was a battle of wits, the clash of big nerdy brains, and the counter-cancellation of opposing strategies. Naruto himself was grinning like a madman as he watched Shikamaru reveal his true potential. With a mind like what the Nara had, he could defeat even the mightiest of ninja. Hey, the droids would love a strategist like Shikamaru. He was also impressed with the sand chick, but Shikamaru was the one he was paying attention to. Shikamaru seemed to be steps ahead of everything Temari did, and when he eventually trapped her in his shadow via one of the holes his cage Bunshin had created while trying to smash Neji's face in, the entire arena became quiet, and then exploded into undignified yells of disapproval as Shikamaru declared that he was giving up. "God damn it. I said don't wimp out, asshole," screamed Naruto as he leapt over the railing and down to the floor. Shikamaru glared at him and Temari made a hasty retreat in order to hide her affectionate smile. Wow. Naruto was working her over and he wasn't even aware of it. Damn. Could her father just hurry the hell up with the plan before something worse happens? "Oi Dobi, lazy ass, get out of the arena so I can fight," said Sasuke as he appeared in a swirl of leaves, dazzling the girls in the audience. "Where the fuck did you learn the fucking shunShin? Sasuke's sweat dropped, as did Shikamaru. Naruto looked away with his nose in the air. "Tch whatever. Kick the sandboy's ass or face my wrath." Then with a dramatic swish of his cape, Naruto turned and headed off, Shikamaru shaking his head as he followed him. "Sheesh, he's worse than before a month ago," muttered Sasuke, actually amused at Naruto's dramatic attitude. He closed his eyes and looked up, clearing his mind and preparing for the most epic of battles he would ever have to face. Gaara wasn't a joke. He'd have to do everything in his power to win this. Like Naruto, he basked in the attention that was given to him. Only these were cheers. Not incredulous yelling because they were stunned that he could have the skill and power to actually win his match. Of course, they also cheer because I'm from the Uchiha clan, he mumbled with a bit of annoyance. That was the only thing that got to him. But what can a guy do, ya know? So instead of wasting time bitching, he just waited for his opponent. Meanwhile, Naruto and Shikamaru had made it up the stairs when they saw Gaara being confronted with by a pair of chump ninjas trying to intimidate him into quitting. "This won't end well," muttered Naruto to the wide-eyed Shikamaru. And sure enough, the two fools got eaten like they were fucking chocolate bunnies by the sand in Gaara's gourd. "Holy shit," muttered Shikamaru, causing Naruto to laugh. "Huh. So you do have a bit of a mouth on ya, that's good to know." Then he continued up the stairs where he met face to face with Gaara. The two seemed to freeze, eyes staring into each other so intently that Shikamaru actually felt the war they were silently waging. Suddenly a tendril of sand shot at Naruto, who responded with a twist and a swipe of his hand as he drew his lightsaber, turned it on and sliced the tendril in half, turning some of the sand into glass. Shikamaru gasped. He barely saw the blonde move. "Yeah, no, just cause those two saps you killed earlier were a couple of saps doesn't mean that I am. Do that again and this baby's taking off your head." "Wait, Naruto, you don't know what this guy is." Naruto ignored Shikamaru as he continued to stare at Gaara, huge lightsaber glowing and humming threateningly. For a second it seemed like Gaara was going to strike, then he gave Naruto the creepiest, most fucked up looking grin he had ever seen. "Mother, wants your blood." If Gaara was expecting any reaction from Naruto, a hearty laugh sure the hell wasn't on the top of the list. "Is your mother hot?" he asked after a minute, stunning Shikamaru. "Are you out of your damn mind?" He screamed loud enough in his head to crumble entire countries. "What?" was Gaara's intelligent reply. Even the Shukaku was surprised. "Because unless she's drop dead gorgeous she ain't getting a shot at me anytime soon, because my blood's been the treasure almost everyone has been seeking since the day I was born. She's gonna have to wait in line unless she arrives looking like something straight out of a hentai designed to look like the ruler of heaven itself." He gave a wink. "Tell your mother those are the conditions if she wants to fight me first. Now come Shika, leave this boy to his fight with the Uchiha." Then with another dramatic swish of his cape he walked past Gaara, hiding his thoroughly amused grin. He didn't really know what was going on with that crazy sand nin, but he didn't really care either. Sasuke could take him, he was sure of it. "Naruto, you really are out of your mind," he grumbled as he edged carefully around Gaara that chased his former classmate down. Naruto's wasn't there when Gaara tried to kill Lee in the hospital. He also wasn't there for the whole story about the monster sealed inside of him either. He was positive Naruto's wouldn't be so cocky if he had heard Gaara's story. However, he just concentrated on breathing a huge sigh of relief at the fact that Gaara didn't mash them with sand. By the time Naruto and Shikamaru returned to the waiting booths, Sasuke and Gaara had already began their fight. The crowd was already on the edges of their seats due to the intensity. They were a blur of moving sand and black-clad Uchiha Avenger. Both were moving at speeds most impressive. Naruto raised an eyebrow when Sasuke started running around Gaara at a great speed. Using Lee's technique how much did you learn from it, Uchiha?" he asked with a smirk as Sasuke finally charged, ducked under a sandy jab, then did a fancy acrobatic side flip before he planted his foot in Gaara's abdomen, stunning the other sand nins and sending Gaara flying a few feet. Naruto gave a sigh as Gaara got back up and attacked again. "If all that sand dude uses is well, sand, then he's pretty lame," said Naruto with a sigh as Sasuke once again introduced Gaara to one of his chakra-encrusted limbs. He missed the astonished looks the rest of the genin were giving him. Did he not witness that slaughter known as his fight with Lee? Then again, Lee nearly killed him, so, oi, what's he doing now? They were taken out of their thoughts by Naruto yelling as Gaara sat down and encased himself in a sphere of sand. Temari, Kankuro and Baki looked terrified and the rest looked intrigued. Well, Sasuke looked pissed. It might have had to do with the sand spikes nearly neutering him, or the floating eyes seemingly smirking at him. "I won't stand for this," he said to himself as she shot up the wall and began to gather a huge amount of chakra while doing hand signs. A few seconds later the crowd was wowed by Sasuke's glowing ball of condensed screeching electricity. Well, there was one exception. "What the fuck? Kinda crazy jacked up shit is this? Why the fuck does he get to learn the condensed lightning move? Kakashi, you're a douche, know that." There were huge anime tears flowing from the blonde's eyes as he looked on with envy at Sasuke's attack as he shot at Gaara and shouted for all to hear, "Chidori." Kakashi's sweat dropped. Naruto would have said more if the shout of, "Ah bloodddd, it's my bloodddd," hadn't thoroughly freaked him and everyone else out. What the hell was that? Then, everything went straight to hell in a handbasket. A genjutsu was dropped and numerous ninja not belonging to Konoha leapt into action, and before anyone could comprehend what the fuck just went down, there was a war going on. Naruto froze as sand ninjas and sound ninjas leapt out of their disguises and attacked anyone even slightly resembling a leaf ninja. Kankuro, who was behind Naruto, smirked with evil intentions. This was gonna be good. Time for his well-deserved revenge. A second before Shino's foot slammed into his face and sent him careening into the arena. "Your fight is with me, coward." Then the bug user was after him. Naruto's attitude did a complete 180 in a second. His eyes surveyed the area with a great intensity. "Attack my homie H," he growled out as he grabbed his laser gun and pointed at the head of an auto nin that was struggling against Kurenai. "Not on my watch, assholes." He pulled the trigger. Kurenai gasped as a green beam of energy lanced through her foe's head, leaving behind a smoking hole. "What the?" Then she saw Naruto lower the weapon, his eyes a freezing blizzard. She gasped. Naruto swished his cape, then with a mighty roar leapt into the air. Rapid fire! He shouted as the beams began to pour out of the gun like rain. Enemy nin were downed in instances. Armor and weapons were melted through like butter. The Konoha nin paused and opted to stare in shock at Naruto's brutality. "Ha, eat this," he shouted. He fired the gun one more time at Baki, who dodged. Barely. "What is that thing?" Naruto smirked and pointed again. "Your demise." But then something caught the corner of his eye. Something that made him gasp. "Naruto, look out!" shouted Sasuke as he shoved the boy away from a wave of sand sent by Gaara. "Mother will have your blood." Naruto snapped out of it but couldn't take his attention off of the cage box, where a purple barrier had formed around the old man and Orochimaru. Sasuke had just planted another Chidori in Gaara's shoulder, causing Temari to grab him and run with him. He chased after him. Naruto stared on in shock at the battle that was happening, and he came to a conclusion very quickly. The old man's not gonna win like this. He ignored the battle going on around him. How he didn't get struck by a stray kunai was a mystery, but there he was, staring up at the purple barrier. Kakashi appeared next to him with Shikamaru, Pakun and Sakura. Naruto followed Sasuke. He went after Gaara, but Naruto didn't hear him. He moved automatically. "Not today, Snake Boy. You won't win while Uzumaki Naruto lives here." Then he bit his thumb and did the hand signs, chakra erupting from him in waves, washing over everyone in the arena and waking up the civilians, as well as the genjutsu was washed away like an old satin on a glass window. Kachiyose number jutsu. Then in a gigantic puff of smoke they appeared, 55 of them. All of them gleaming in the sunlight like metal statues. Terminators and Skynet himself. And floating above them was a single sentinel, Naruto standing atop of it like a king of darkness. The sentinel floated there motionless until Naruto's voice echoed across the village. "Anyone that's inside that barrier that is not the old man is to be killed, understand?" The sentinel beeped a few times in response. Naruto smirked. "Good." Then he looked down to Skynet and the Terminators. "Hello again, human," said the machine. Naruto smirked. "So I got you guys on my first try, Then he gave a wicked grin. "Good, because I have some ninjas for you to kill." "Oh." Naruto pointed to his headband. "In this village are humans bearing this symbol. The ones that don't bear this symbol but bear a different one? Those are you targets." Skynet grinned. "It will be a pleasure." His left arm transformed into a small cannon with a glowing blue barrel. The Terminators went through similar transformations. The T-1000 were little more than metal walking skeletons, but the more advanced human killing machines. The TXs, however, gained a silver metallic human appearance like Skynet. Then the slaughter began. Naruto then yanked his scroll from his back, smeared a bit of blood on it and summoned forth a blue board that had 2 glowing rings on the underside of it. Naruto leapt onto the board and stunned all when he began to float. "Now go." He was off, shooting through the air towards the forest and Sasuke while the sentinel shot at the barrier, leaving behind an entire village of stunned onlooker. One thought went through the minds of the Sound Four as a giant mechanical flying squid thing latched onto their barrier and proceeded to cut through it like butter with a high concentrated red beam of energy. And that thought was, "Oh fucking crap." Then the sentinel forced the rest of the way into the barrier and descended upon the resurrected forms of the first and second Hokage. Sarutobi gasped as the tentacles started lashing out like whips. One caught the second and sent him crashing into Sarutobi's mud wall. The first was quicker to respond. He leapt over one of the sentinel's tentacles and returned to Orochimaru's side and started doing hand signs. The machine buzzed and whirred as the trees inside the barrier came to life, roots and wood shooting out trying to contain the machine. The sentinel's tentacles lashed out with unheard of speeds, breaking the wood just as furiously as the wood kept trying to restrain it. Sarutobi and Orochimaru just stood there as a battle between monstrosities took place. It was a clash of nature and machine in its purest of forms. Finally, a huge root shot out of the ground and managed to wrap around the sentinel several times, concealing it completely. The first looked a bit tired but seemed satisfied as well. Orochimaru chuckled. "What an amazing piece of technology. I didn't know there was a summoning contract for such things or that such things existed. This machine will make an excellent research specimen." He turned his attention back to Sarutobi as the second Hokage rejoined him at his side. "Now, where were we?" Sarutobi was about to strike when a red beam of red energy burst from the wood prison and burned away a round section with a high-pitched screech almost too high for human ears to register. Then the sentinel emerged, looked quite annoyed as a machine like that could look anyway before it started to spin. The first and second wasted no time and both began to do their jutsus. And just as a gigantic wave of water and a huge spike made of wood shot at the machine, The sentinel released what looked like a smaller version of itself right at Orochimaru and the two cages before it skillfully dodged the attacks of the two. What is? Began Orochimaru in pure fascination as the small replica stared Orochimaru in the eyes. A second later it exploded, tearing everything in the area apart in a fantastical display of fire and metal shards. Sarutobi only had time to gasp as a huge metal form laid it in front of him. "Sweet Kami!" exclaimed an Anbu member. "What the hell is that thing? To think that boy is able to summon such a powerful creature. Where did he get such a contract?" When the smoke cleared, the members of the Sound Four, the four that were sustaining the barrier, gasped at what greeted them. The sentinel was lying protectively in front of Sarutobi, having taken the brunt of the blast like a bully takes a wimpy kid's punch to the stomach, and was examining the severely injured Orochimaru. And by severely injured I mean that half of his body was laying in front of the sentinel while the other half was moaning pathetically 20 yards to the left. Blood was everywhere and the Kusanagi was a broken mess of metal shards. Then the tentacles lashed out suddenly and caught the first and second Hokages in their grip. The Sound Four panicked and the barrier was lowered. "Get Orochimaru-sama out of here!" exclaimed Kidomaru as he grabbed Orochimaru's lower half with a skillful use of his bloodline limit while the big one grabbed the upper half. The Anbu attempted to apprehend them, but the Sound Four was already gone, though a tentacle from the sentinel nearly took off one of the two-headed one's heads. Sarutobi stood there with a blank face as the Anbu rushed to him. His brain had shut down and Enma had returned to his original form, looking just as stunned. The sentinel turned to the Hokage and scanned him for a few seconds. The Anbu tensed, wondering if it was going to attack, but then the machine gave a few satisfied buzzes before it vanished in a puff of smoke, taking the two Hokages with it. Sarutobi finally snapped out of it and he collapsed. "Naruto, you saved my life," he said as he blacked out from exhaustion. Back in the arena, the looks of shock at Naruto's earlier use of the Kachiyose faded quite quickly. The reason is quite simple actually. It was Skynet's bellow of, "You heard the boy. Destroy the targets." Then the Terminators moved out in all directions, traveling in groups of 2 and 3 and proceeding to manhandle the ninja of Otto and Suna. "Holy shit!" exclaimed one particularly lucky Otto Nin as he leapt high into the air over 6 rays of thermal energy. That's all he could do actually. His kunai had been wasted on Konoha Shinobi and already he could tell that these creatures summoned by that brat were tough. As he landed he proceeded to put some distance between himself and them. There was no way he was going to face them until he knew what they could do. And he watched in horror as they slaughtered his comrades. Bursts of red, blue or green exploded outwards from the Terminator's guns and tore through the enemies of Konoha. Each machine displayed a level of physical strength that scared him. He watched one of the machines lifted a rather large Otto Nin by the neck with far too much ease before it rammed its metallic hand into his chest and ripped out the heart in a brutal display. He knew they were machines of some sort, but he didn't know what kind. Was Konoha working on some new shit? He didn't know, and it scared him because these machines looked like they were specifically built to kill human beings. He finally was overcome with fear and he turned to run. He smacked right into Skynet, who gave the evilest grin he had ever seen, and before he could scream in terror his head was reduced to crushed ruins. "Cowardly human," said the Terminator leader before the sight of numerous gigantic snakes caught his attention. Skynet actually widened his eyes in fascination before he smirked and transformed both arms into a large Gatling gun with a long chain of bullets trailing from the machine and to the ground. This era certainly is an interesting one. Then he took aim. Jiraiya had just arrived on the scene of the giant snakes and was about to dramatically introduce himself as he summoned a toad large enough to crush Orochimaru's summons into nothingness when something suddenly tore through the snakes like rocks would through butter. There were hundreds of them, like little bugs intent on getting to their destination. No matter what stood in there was in the snakes just happened to be the poor saps in the way of said speeding projectiles. The Sannin and the 3 different factions of ninja in the area looked on in shock as the snakes' heads were literally reduced to chunks of meat, sending bone and brain matter splattering all over the ground before the snakes vanished in puffs of smoke. Okay. What the fuck was that? Ibiki followed the direction of the projectiles and turned to the east, where he locked eyes with a distant Silverman with transformed arms, smirking. Then he saw the destruction the rest of the Terminators were reaping upon the enemy ninjas. Jiraiya-sama. What the fuck are those? The Sannin could only gape when he saw an Otto Nin get a lucky blow on one of the walking death machines, causing it to vanish in a puff of smoke. They're summons. But whose? Neither of them saw the blur shoot through the air above them out of Konoha. Naruto's face was blank. His eyes half-lidded as if he was disinterested in the world around him. Or maybe it was the wind blasting his face as he shot towards Sasuke and Gaara on his hoverboard. Yeah, let's go with that reason. Naruto's mind was going a mile a minute. How was he going to do this? Should he sweep in and take heads off with his lightsaber or reveal something new? His eye briefly drifted to the wooden stick on his belt. It seemed like a good idea to reveal that one. However, people are so gonna laugh when they hear about this, he thought. All the technology in the world wouldn't make up for the sheer ridiculousness of the wooden stick and what it actually is. Even if it was the main accomplishment of the era it represents. He sighed as he shot over the forest, green and brown blurring below him. Might as well get this over with. He fingered his scroll. There's a lot that could be said about Sasuke Uchiha. Ambitious, talented, handsome, a cold-hearted bastard. Hell, he's even been called gay by some of his more vicious fangirls and opposing other boys trying to gain the attention of said fangirls themselves. But one thing that could never be said about Sasuke, until about 30 seconds ago, was that he knows what it's like to be truly honestly and thoroughly freaked the fuck out. And no, it wasn't because Gaara was facing him all half-animal sand raccoonified and drooling like a mental patient from behind jagged sharp teeth, as shocking as that may sound. But Sasuke already knew that there was something seriously off with the Sand Nin, so the surprise factor on his transformation was quite low on the scale. No, he was freaked out because the second he tried pull off another Chidori, completely forgetting that he had used his two back in the arena, the cursed seal activated, flooding his body with its tainted chakra. Now normally in a situation such as this, that wouldn't be a bad thing. In fact, that would usually be considered a gift from Kami and a big fat-ass lifesaver. However, when said seal activates and causes a giant hand wing to burst from your right shoulder and half of your face to turn gray, purple and your lips to gain a purple lipstick hue to them, shit tends to unravel fast. And that is how Naruto found them, Sasuke on his knees, gaping at his new appendage with comical, huge eyes. Gaara moving in for the kill and Sakura screeching in terror while pointing at both of the combatants. Gaara lunge. Naruto leapt from his hoverboard and slammed his foot into the Sand Nin's head, knocking him back. Naruto took 2 seconds to examine the situation before he pointed at the partially transformed Sasuke. Hate to get bitch slapped by that thing, he said. Then he turned to Sakura as the hoverboard lowered to him. And before the pink-haired girl could ask him what said hoverboard was, he grabbed her by the waist and lifted her onto it. Wait, what are you doing? Naruto ignored her as he placed her feet even on the board. Sakura was about to yell again when Naruto spoke. Lean forward for acceleration. Stand straight up to slow to a stop and lean back to rise into the air, stick to it with chakra and lean to the side you want to turn to. Sakura's eyes widened. What are you? Get back to Konoha and help the people there, interrupted Naruto. You will be of more use there than here. Sakura's eyes took on an unholy fury as her inner persona began to surface. Are you calling me weak? Naruto would have caved a month ago. He would have turned into a stuttering pathetic mess in the face of her fury a month ago. But that was a month ago, before his new knowledge, his new mindset and his new confidence. So instead of cowering he simply smirked and slapped her in the ass, causing her to eep very loudly as she jerked into a backwards arch in an attempt to cover her stinging butt cheeks. Her face was red. What the fuck was that? It was then that she noticed that she was steadily rising into the air. Get back to Konoha, Sakura. Remember those instructions I told you and you won't crash. Sakura finally noted the tone in his voice. It was commanding, strong, dominating. There was power in his words. It was the kind of power that told her that she had no choice but to obey the blonde. When did he gain such masculinity? She thought as she reluctantly flew away back towards the village. She rubbed her slightly tingling ass and blushed a bit. He's gonna pay for doing that, she thought. Now that Sakura was gone, Naruto breathed a sigh of relief. Now he didn't have to worry about her getting caught by Gaara, who strangely enough, opted to stay and watch the entire process of getting Sakura to leave. Naruto was so open to attack he might as well have been saying, "Come get me man, I'm more helpless than a newborn kitten," while he was talking to Sakura, but the Sand Nin didn't capitalize on that. He just stood there, with a dopey confused expression on his halfway beastly face. Naruto, not willing to nip a gift horse in the mouth, decided that the fight should probably begin. He turned to Sasuke, who was now on his feet again, but the cursed seal showed no signs of retracting and gave a nod. You go ahead and rest. Get that mutation under control. Now normally Sasuke would have refused Naruto's help, however he had more important things to worry about. Said mutation was the main concern, so he turned and headed to a safer spot. Don't die, Dobi. I think he's got a monster sealed inside of him. He talks to himself like a crazy person, calling whatever he's speaking to mother. Naruto nodded as he grabbed his lightsaber, activating it in a nice display of glowing orange. Well, Mama's boy is in for a spanking, he said. Gaara's grin grew. It's you? The arrogant one with the foul mouth. Mother's wanted your blood since earlier today. Naruto examined the beast part of Gaara. His mind was processing what Sasuke said and he felt a bit of shock ripple through him. Another demon container. I didn't know more existed. Damn too bad he's off his rocker. Otherwise I might have had a kindred spirit to relate to. He took up the stance Grievous had taught him and smirked. Let's dance, Sandy Pants. Gaara snarled and raised his arm. Mother will have your blood. Then his demonic-looking appendage expanded and shot right at him. Naruto easily avoided the arm and sighed. Yes, I've heard enough about your mother's vampirism to last me a month. What I want to know is where the fuck is she? He threw a few shuriken that were easily blocked by Gaara's arm. Cause all I've heard is a bunch of shit being talked by some half-wit crazy boy. Gaara snarled loudly and shot right at Naruto in a shocking display of speed. Naruto himself just pointed his lightsaber straight out and smirked as he suddenly started to spin, very fast, becoming a blur of orange and white. Nearby, Temari gasped as Gaara's sandarm was literally torn to smoking shreds of glass and sand. Gaara leapt back to avoid the energy blade and glared. Naruto smirked as he stopped spinning. It ain't perfect like Grievous. Cheating-ass machine can rotate his torso only, but it works well enough. He then took up a stance again. Care to try again? Gaara's mind was clouded with demonic rage. No one makes a fool of me. More sand exploded off of Gaara and condensed around him, forming a miniature version of the Ichibi with Gaara's legs being the only human thing left. Well, that's new. Naruto then had to leap up lest he turned into Swiss cheese by the sand bullets Gaara was suddenly launching at him. Ah crap, this isn't good. Naruto deflected most of the sand projectiles but took one in the shoulder and two more in the stomach. They hit with so much force he was slammed into a tree. The lightsaber nearly fell from his hands but he held strong and sucked in much needed air. Gaara laughed maniacally. Not so tough now, are you? Now die. Suna Shuriken. Naruto had just gotten to his feet when several more sand bullets blasted him again, this time forcing him through the tree. Act. Oh come on. He shouted as he landed against a particularly thick tree. Sasuke landed beside him. Mutated hand wings still sticking out of his shoulder, though his face was back to normal. Naruto grunted in pain as he stumbled back to his feet. Damn him and his fucking sand. He grumbled as he readied the lightsaber again. Sasuke merely snorted. What did you expect, Dobi? You've seen him fight before. Naruto shrugged. I've seen a lot of shit in the last month. Then he shot right at Gaara in a show of speed more impressive than Gaara's. Sasuke's eyes widened in shock as Naruto headed right at him. Such speed. When did? Gaara lunged as well but Naruto was ready for that. Ha! Eat this mama's boy. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. 6 Narutos appeared and each one slammed a boot into Gaara ugly beast mug. The sand Jinchuriki was slammed into the ground and Naruto descended upon him, lightsaber poised to impale him through the chest. And it would have worked too if Gaara's tail hadn't suddenly lashed out and pimp slapped him into yet another tree. Naruto gasped as the air was yet again forced from his lungs then but before he could recover, Gaara's demonic hands clasped around him. Ha! What now, Uzumaki Naruto? Did you honestly believe that you could defeat me? The demonic appendages tightened their grip on the blonde making it harder to breathe. Gaara took a sick satisfaction in squeezing the life out of Naruto. This boy, this obnoxious nuisance had a pair of eyes he hated. Eyes that bored into his own without any sort of fear. Eyes belonging to a person that truly believed he could face and defeat him. It was a mockery. This trash was going to die, slowly and painfully. But Naruto, even though he was currently getting squeezed like a damn grape, started to talk while he dropped his lightsaber to the ground where it immediately deactivated. Well, I must admit that I was underestimating you. I guess I'm still high on adrenaline from whooping Neji's bitch ass all over the stadium. He sucked in more air. And now I feel like an ass. Then he smiled in Gaara's direction. However, that means I'm done taking this little showdown lightly. You wanna know why I think I can beat your red-headed ass all over this forest? Naruto shifted a bit and latched his hand around the wooden stick on his belt. With a few skilled finger movements he unclasped it from his belt and pointed it at the Jinchuriki. And before Gaara, Temari and Sasuke could ask what that ridiculous-looking stick was, Naruto shouted. It's because I can. Reducto, silver light exploded from the end of the stick, slammed into Gaara's arm and caused the sand to implode then explode in a furious show of desert mineral destruction. Eyes widened all over as Naruto was freed from the sand. What the hell was that? Exclaimed Sasuke while Gaara just stood there dumbfounded. Naruto smirked as he picked up his lightsaber and reattached it to his belt. Hey mama's boy, do you believe in magic? Gaara snarled as his arms slowly reformed. Because I sure didn't until a month ago. He pointed the stick again. I mean, come on. The idea that things like magic wands, flying broomsticks and crystal balls actually existing was enough to make even 6-year-olds laugh. Gaara's arms fully reformed and promptly shot at Naruto. Enough babble. Fight and die by my hands. Gaara launched himself at Naruto once again, intent on ripping him to shreds. Naruto leapt over Gaara and blasted him with another reducto. But then I found out that there was actually an entire era dedicated to magic. Real magic. Complete with witches, wizards and fairies and all of that corny shit. Gaara fired a ball of wind at him, which Naruto promptly blocked with another yell, Transfiguration, turning a nearby boulder into a very strong metal shield that blocked the wind. Sasuke could only watch in awe at Naruto's newfound abilities. What was this? Where exactly did the Dobi fall to gain all of this power? He had to know. With another yell of transfiguration, the shield turned into a red metal thing with a long thick hose attached to it. Naruto smirked again and opened a latch. Before Gaara could charge again, a very heavy stream of water exploded out of the hose and slammed into him. Naruto laughed insanely as he continued to blast Gaara with water. Ha! The power of a fire hydrant, sucka. Gaara could only gasp in shock as his sand was ripped from his body in muddy globs that fell to the ground, leaving the redhead collapsed on his back and breathing heavily. Naruto dropped from above and landed at Gaara's side, pointing the stick at him. Give up or I reducto the shit out of your head, and trust me when I say no one here would like that. I would, said Sasuke as he landed next to Naruto. The cursed seal had mostly retracted, leaving his right arm covered in black flame-like markings. Well, you're bloodthirsty anyway, said Naruto. Sasuke was about to respond when a massive wave of sand suddenly exploded from underneath the ground and shot straight up into the air, throwing Naruto and Sasuke off in different directions. I refuse to lose to a guy like you, shouted Gaara in a significantly altered voice. Naruto recovered just in time to see the dust clear away to reveal a huge sand raccoon dog complete with glowing yellow eyes and Gaara sticking out of its forehead from the waist up. Oh come on, that's just fucking cheap, yelled Naruto as he eyed the huge demon before him. Nearby, Temari saw fit to retreat to a far safer distance. Gaara laughed. What will you do now, Naruto Uzumaki? Can you face the power of Mother? Mother? That's who you call your mother? Damn it, I thought your mother was hot blood-sucking vampire wannabe woman, not a fucking tanuki. Gaara growled, still you mock me, no longer, die. Naruto's eyes winded for like the 5th time in the last few minutes as he was once again grabbed by sand. Crap. What now? He muttered as the sand slowly covered his body. He never heard Sasuke's shouts of his name. Naruto's mind was going a mile a minute. What the hell could keep him from dying? Shit, this definitely ain't good. Oh wait, he said suddenly as an idea came to life in his head. He quickly bit his thumb and began to go through the signs for the Kachiyose no Jutsu. Please let this work. Gaara's grin grew in volume as the sand covered his victim. Die now. Sand cough. Kachiyose number Jutsu. Sasuke gasped. Temari gasped and Gaara's eyes got wide as in a massive puff of smoke appeared a huge red-blue jacket-clad pipe-smoking toad. The sand around Naruto was blown away in the process and it resulted in Naruto ending up being perched on the massive toad's head, however. God damn, that's tiring. Naruto was hunched over and breathing heavily like he had just got done challenging Guide to a 30-lap race around Konoha. He felt like he had no chakra but couldn't help but smile. Well, at least it worked. I had forgotten all about the toads. The massive toad's eyes were closed in exasperation as he took a hit of his pipe. What the hell is this crap, Jiraiya? You really expect me to fight the Shukaku? Naruto's sweat dropped and lightly slapped the toad's head in order to get his attention. I'm the one who summoned you and yes, I expect you to help me fight, it's what summons do, right? The toad looked up and saw a blonde he'd never even knew existed before this point and scoffed. Not interested, brat. Take a hike and never summon me again. Then the toad vanished in a puff of smoke, just like that. Gone in a very anticlimactic manner, no less. Sasuke and Temari just looked on, shocked and slightly amused. Are you fucking shitting me? Shouted Naruto as he plunged to the ground. That's bullshit. At least give me back my chakra, you fucking asswipe. Naruto landed hard in a crouch on a large tree and looked up tiredly. Damn it. Gaara's laugh echoed all through the forest. Ha 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 ha. You had me worried there for a second, but now you die. Face the true power of Mother. Gaara then did a few more hand signs and shouted, false sleep technique. And before Naruto could ask what was happening, Gaara passed out and Yukai flooded the area. The demon's eyes glowed a brighter yellow and seemed to come even more to life. The Shukaku looked around for a second as if confused, then shouted. Ooh yee Shukaku's out and ready to spill some blood, baby. Bring it the fuck on. Oh, you have got to be pulling my damn leg. Naruto stared up at the beast. Sasuke and Temari appeared on either side of him. We're dead. We're so dead. Temari was shaking like a leaf and Sasuke was contemplating re-releasing the cursed seal. Naruto, don't you have anything in the scroll of yours that can help us out? The Uchiha sounded desperate and afraid as well. Naruto's eyes widened. Sasuke, you're a fucking genius, ya know that. Well, I am an Uchiha after all, he said with mock pride. Now hurry the hell up. Naruto shrugged and grabbed his scroll. I can't believe I didn't think of this in the first place. We wouldn't be going through all of this crap right now if I had. He once again and bit his thumb and swiped it across the seals. Here babe, hold my wand, he said as he handed the wooden stick to Temari. Did you just say a wand? Asked an incredulous Sasuke. Meanwhile the Shukaku had just spotted them. Oh, there you are, prepared to die bitches, ha 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 ha. Naruto channeled chakra into the storage seal of his scroll and smirked as something long, metal and heavy appeared in a puff of smoke. It looked like a huge replicated and modified version of his laser gun. It was resting on a stand and had a handle jutting out from the side. Numerous lights glowed along the barrel of the weapon and there was a groove in the large handle meant for a shoulder. Naruto knelt down, adjusting the thing onto his shoulder and focusing on eye into a scope. He grabbed lever and took a deep breath. The Shukaku sucked in a huge amount of air and puffed up a large belly. Hey Uchiha, help me keep this steady will ya? Wait, what are you doing? Naruto took aim and clicked a few buttons. The thing started to hum loudly and energy seemed to be getting sucked into the barrel. Just grab the other handle and brace yourself. This is your end, massive air bullet. Pure energy compacted in a massive sphere of air exploded from the Shukaku's mouth and came right at them. Temari froze in horror. Now would be a great time to do something, yelled Sasuke. Naruto steadied the large gun and breathed in. Even in the face of a huge windball coming at them, Naruto remained calm. He had to. Ancient technological relic number 558 inches, he began. He pulled the trigger, and destruction was rained down upon the Shukaku. Golden outlined blue light exploded from the end of the barrel with a loud whoosh and a kick back that nearly threw Naruto and Sasuke off of their feet. The energy blasted right through the windball with so much force it actually overtook and absorbed the wind. Rings of wind appeared around the beam as it sailed at the demon. Trees, rocks and dirt were torn asunder like nothing and a shockwave rippled all the way back to Konoha. Shukaku only had time to utter a surprised wah before the beam blasted through his stomach and engulfed everything in a massive explosion of sound and energy. And while the destruction was being wrought on the forest and Shukaku, Naruto stood and faced the epicenter with a pair of wide-eyed genin looking at him in freaking awe. Wave motion cannon, was all Naruto said. Naruto stood there as the winds from his weapon's blast began to die down. His hair and cape were billowing all over and the scroll that held the numerous relics from the past was once again strapped to his back. Shukaku's scream had ended some time ago. Now they were just waiting for the results when the dust cleared away. Naruto gave a satisfied smirk before he turned back to Temari and said, "Sorry if he was important to you, because I seriously doubt there's anything left after that." Then he reclaimed his wand and reattached it to his belt, leaving the Sand Kunoichi to stare in horror. Sasuke was gaping at Naruto's weapon, the wave motion cannon. His eyes were wide and contemplative. The power behind this thing, Itachi wouldn't stand a chance against something like this. "Dobi, can I have this?" he asked out of instinct instead of thought. Naruto laughed as he leapt from the tree and started walking towards the blast zone where Shukaku used to be but didn't actually answer the Uchiha's question. Sasuke just sighed and followed him. But not before strapping the wave motion cannon to his back, lest it end up in enemy hands, though it made things a bit complicated seeing as how the weapon is longer than he is tall and a lot heavier. Temari, out of worry for her brother, followed after them. Upon reaching the area where Shukaku used to be, Naruto, Sasuke and Temari were greeted by the sight of a large smoking crater surrounded by broken shards of glass ranging in size from as big as a pen to as big as a freaking small building. If the situation wasn't so serious, Temari and Naruto would have mused about how pretty the area was, what with rainbow lights dancing all over the place like a fantasy ballet. And right in the center of that crater was Gaara. He was on his back completely naked and severely burned in several areas of his body. He was conscious. How? No one would ever be able to guess, and he was breathing deeply. Naruto took one look at him before he drew his lightsaber and started walking towards him. "Ya know?" he began, drawing Gaara's attention and making him gasp in fear. "You and I have a lot in common." He stopped at Gaara's side and leveled the lightsaber at Gaara's throat. "Okay, maybe not as much in common outside of the whole sealed demon thing, but hey. I imagine your childhood sucked major ass as well." Behind him Temari and Sasuke gasped. "But I gotta honestly say, you're giving us demon containers a bad name by acting like a depraved psychopath bent on drinking the blood of your slain victims and claiming a giant sand and obviously male tanuki to be your mother." He ignored the voice in the back of his head that asked, "Since when the fuck do you know what standards demon containers are supposed to go by?" Gaara just continued to stare with wide fearful eyes as Naruto seemed to contemplate lopping off his head. "And I wonder what exactly drove you to this point in insanity, but I'd be a damn fool to judge you simply on that basis." He suddenly scowled. "But when you come here acting like king shit, threatening my home, even if said home is full of retarded retards, and you open yourself up to an ass whooping. Don't think I didn't have a lot of knowledge about your sand, and let me tell you I have several things sealed within this scroll that can render your sand useless." He sighed again. "It's a shame. I actually saw a kindred spirit in you. Oh well." If anyone other than Sasuke and Temari were with him, they would have openly gaped at the disturbingly nonchalant way in which he was about to kill someone. Hell, they'd probably be up for days pondering and questioning the very village he's from if they bred soldiers like that to the point that even young people felt no emotions. However, since it was just Sasuke and Temari, both who have been very close, personal and intimate with that sadistic bitch known as the Mistress of Death, such a reaction never happened, though one just as surprising did. "No!" yelled Temari as she seemingly teleported into Naruto's lightsaber's path. Naruto's eyes got as wide as saucers and he only had enough time to pull back on his blade. So instead of cutting her in half like what was getting ready to happen, he left a relatively shallow burning slash across her back. Naruto and Sasuke both winced as she screamed in pain as the lightsaber danced across her back, incinerating the cloth there and filling the area with the smell of smoking flesh which, oddly enough, had Naruto thinking of beef jerky. Temari ignored the pain as she hugged her brother with all the strength she possessed. She turned to glare at Naruto and Sasuke, tears brimming on the edges of her eyes. "Don't," she began. "Please spare him." Her voice was full of desperation and pleading. It was a look that made Naruto falter in his resolve to decapitate Gaara. Sasuke just huffed and crossed his arms, not really caring either way. He just wanted to go home, get some sleep and try to convince Naruto to give him that cannon. Naruto on the other hand had actually lowered his weapon and deactivated it. His eyes were locked with Temari's and he stared for a full 10 seconds, then he sighed. "Fine, get out of here while you still can." Then he turned and headed back towards Konoha, Sasuke following next to him. "Dobi, you never answered whether or not I could have this thing." Temari listened as Naruto once again laughed, and Sasuke growled in annoyance. She gave a smile full of gratitude. "Thank you, Naruto-kun." Then she turned towards her shocked brother and shakily got to her feet. "Come on," she began as she lifted him up, ignoring the wince in her back as she did so. "Let's find Kankuro's dumb ass and go home." Gaara could only nod. If one were to watch the invasion of Konoha from above or from a different dimension like a TV show, they would have sweat dropped at how pathetic Konoha and Naruto's summons made Otto and Suna look. The damn attack was over before it even had any time to begin. The Terminators tore through their victims like paper with the Konoha ninjas by their sides, fighting just as fiercely. In fact, it was over so quickly everyone had time to gasp as the giant form of the Shukaku materialized in their forest. Then literally get disintegrated by a massive blast of energy. Hell. They even saw Sakura return to the village on the hoverboard Naruto had lent her and had enough time to bombard her with questions. Desperate to see if she knew the ninja responsible for this crushing victory over their enemy. Some already knew, and word was quickly spreading. Sakura was feeling a bit annoyed that she was left out of all of the action, but she also thought to herself, who the hell am I kidding? I would have gotten in the way. Such a thought was of course a very depressing one, but she had no choice but to face that fact. Watching Naruto improve by so much, leaving her in the dust in order to compete with Sasuke, made her seriously re-evaluate her priorities. Her thoughts though were interrupted as soon as she landed on the ground and strapped the hoverboard to her back when an Enbu suddenly appeared before her. "Haruno Sakura, Hokage-sama and the council wish to see you right now." Gulping, the girl made her way towards the Hokage tower. Upon returning to Konoha, Naruto and Sasuke were met up with by Skynet and the Terminators. "Enemy terminated," said the machine with an evil smirk. Naruto glanced around the village and upon seeing the remnants of the poor saps unfortunate enough to have gotten captured by one of the robots, sweat dropped. "Well, okay then, good job." Sasuke, like any other 13-year-old boy, was overfilled with curiosity in an instant upon seeing the machines and couldn't help but approach and poke Skynet, asking, "What the hell is this?" Naruto barely managed to save him from the plasma blast a millisecond later. "Geez, Sasuke, you idiot!" exclaimed the blonde as the Terminator leader grinned evilly. The Uchiha looked quite shaken but was also glaring at Skynet with a fully activated Sharingan. "What the hell was that for?" he demanded. Naruto sighed. "He hates humans," he said. "Don't let him catch you alone." Skynet glared at the boy. "I'm not that desperate for the bones of you flesh sacks." "Yeah, sure," said Naruto while rolling his eyes. Sasuke continued his glare for 2 more seconds before his attention was taken by Naruto removing the wave motion cannon from his back and sealing it back into his scroll. "Thanks for holding that for me, Sasuke," he said with a grin as Sasuke growled. He wanted that damn cannon. Naruto seemed to notice Sasuke's displeasure and grinned. Skynet, finally annoyed at being ignored, huffed and jabbed Naruto rather harshly in the ribs. "Ow. You metal asshole," he exclaimed. "I'm leaving. It's bad enough I've been here this long without killing any more of you humans." "Oh, shut up, you drama queen." Then he sighed and made a shooing motion with his hand. "Beat it. Tell the others I said hey." Skynet glared with a mix of annoyance and amusement. "Until next time," he said as he and the Terminators vanished in puffs of smoke. Sasuke was amazed. Wands, energy swords, powerful projectile weapons and an army of living machines. What the fuck else does he have in that scroll? More questions about his blonde teammate rose up. Naruto sighed and got ready to speak to Sasuke again when 2 Anbu suddenly materialized in front of them. "Uzumaki Naruto. You and Uchiha-sama are to be at the council chambers in 10 minutes. Then the Anbu was gone. Naruto sighed again. "Damn, that shit was fast," he muttered. Sasuke nodded, already suspecting what the council wanted them for. When the sentinel reappeared in front of Deus Ex Machina grasping the slumped-over forms of the first and second Hokage, she couldn't help but raise an eyebrow. "Oh," she began as she eyed the 2 humans in her pet's grasp. "What did you bring for me?" The sentinel made a few buzzing noises, then bathed the 2 Hokages in an X-ray light, illuminating the trapped forms of Zaku and Kin beneath. The Deus Ex Machina widened her eyes in surprise. "What an interesting technique," she began as her own eyes revealed to her the seal-tagged kunai binding the Hokage souls to the sacrificed bodies. She then smirked. "Let's see if I can't fix this." A plan formed in her head as she instructed the sentinel to lower the 2 captives. The meeting with the council went very unexpectedly. He and Sasuke walked in and were met with the steady gazes of the council, of course, Jiraiya, Ibiki, and Sarutobi, who looked like he just woke up from a beating-instilled coma. He was also surprised to see both Shikamaru and Sakura there. "Ah, yeah, how's it going, everyone?" began the blonde with a nervous laugh as he rubbed the back of his head. Several pairs of eyes narrowed ever so slightly. "Uzumaki Naruto," began Hamura, Sarutobi's advisor. "I'm sure you can already guess the reason you have been summoned here?" Yeah, but why are these 3 here?" he asked as he pointed to Shikamaru, Sakura and Sasuke. "Because they seem to be the only ones who know most about those weapons you have." At this, Naruto gulped out of nervousness. Great, this was the last fucking thing he needed right now. "And," he began, cautiously, "where did you get them?" Naruto was about to respond with, "What the fuck do you mean? You should already know," but he froze. "Holy shit, they don't know. How the fuck did that happen? Didn't I blurt it out to the whole freaking world? Huh, what luck." "They were an inheritance," he said smoothly, and it was true. As a human he had inherited that city. The machines told him themselves. "I don't believe you, boy," said an old man covered in bandages. "You are an orphan. No one knows who your parents were and no one cares, so tell the truth." Naruto sighed and said, "Yeah, well, I didn't say I inherited them from my long-lost parents. How corny would that shit be? Besides, I don't need any parents. After all, I survived without them for this long, right? You however are close to dying right here if ya don't watch what you say, you old bastard." Sasuke, Sakura and Shikamaru all gasped at his response. Damn, Naruto must have balls of steel to say that, thought Shikamaru. The man's single visible eye narrowed dangerously and Naruto was already preparing to summon Skynet again. Consequences be damned. He wasn't a punching bag anymore. Sarutobi released a blast of killing intent and glared hotly at the old man. "Danzo, watch your mouth or I'll kill you myself. I'm not in the mood for your pompousness today." Let the boy speak and refrain from insulting him. Danzo actually recoiled in shock, as did numerous other council members. "Sarutobi, are you really going to let him get away with threatening a member of the council?" Danzo was not happy, nor were Hamura and Kaharu. "Hey, I just saved her asses from a fucking biju. A biju? I can say whatever the fuck I want to. I'm entitled that much if you fools have such a poor level of gratitude." Seems that a near-death experience can change a man, because Sarutobi suddenly went demon-style on them with the amount of killing intent he was aiming at the council. Sakura, Sasuke and Shikamaru were at a loss for words. Geez, they were obviously witnessing a feud, an old feud too. What the freaking hell was going on? Sasuke was sure it had to do with what Naruto said earlier after he had wasted Gaara, about being a demon container. However, thanks to Sarutobi's aura, one that practically screamed, Say the wrong thing and I'm going to ass rape you with your own fucking dismembered dicks. The council forcibly relaxed themselves. This made Naruto relax as well, and after a few seconds, he spoke. If y'all wanna know what's going on, I'll be happy to tell you some stuff. Y'all don't have to be such asses about it. There were some glares cast at him, but he ignored them. Besides, it's not like I'd be doing any good by trying to be greedy. I can't use all the shit I have anyway. There's only one of me, technically. He grinned at the thought of the swaths of shadow clones he can create. Just how much do you have in your possession? Asked Inuzuka Sume, who if she was honest with herself was quite amused by the boy's attitude and very impressed with his tenacity and strength. She saw those machines he summoned as well as the incineration of the Shukaku. Anyone with working eyes had seen it. She had to admit that she wished she was a bit younger. He grinned. 7 golden ages and 2 dark ages, he said. Simple as that. That all he needed to say to get his point across. And across it got. Are you serious? Screamed Sakura while other council members gasped. Ibiki choked on his tea, which he had mysteriously acquired sometime during the last minute, and Jiraiya who face planted. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle at their responses. Well, I don't have EVERYTHIGN on me, but, yeah, you get the idea. There were a few more gasps. Yeah, it's amazing what we are actually capable of. All of the things I have are things we had created sometime in the past. All y'all really need to understand is that these things are freaking old, hecka old. Well, except for my lightsaber. I built that like 2 days ago. He gave a smirk at the gobsmacked expressions on the faces. Inoichi Yamanaka spoke up. I saw you summon those machines. Where did you get such a powerful summoning contract? Naruto shrugged. Oh, that? It was made for me by them. They offered. Then he grumbled. I still don't fucking know how the hell Deus even managed to create that scroll, but oh well. He smiled, then turned to Jiraiya. Oh, and speaking of summons, me and a certain bastard toad are gonna have a little chat when this is done. I don't like being insulted and ditched while fighting a giant fucking sand demon in order to save my home because of a retardedly inflated ego. Your frog's fucking dead. I hope you let him know. I'm going to help him, said Sasuke. That damn slime ball almost caused them the win against that demon. If Naruto hadn't pulled out that cannon, his thoughts faded away as he thought more about that weapon. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow in confusion and uncertainty. He wasn't sure, but Naruto's eyes told Jiraiya that he wasn't lying. Gamabunta was freaking toast. Now then, began the blonde again as he turned towards Sakura. All of these things are the products of a past accomplishment of our species. He held out his hand and Sakura gave the hoverboard to him a bit reluctantly. Naruto turned the thing over in his hand twice before he pressed a couple of buttons and let it drop where it hovered a foot above ground with a gentle hum. We've been through 7 golden ages already, in this period, the ninja one is one of our weaker ones, he explained. Several council members' eyebrows rose, mocking looks upon their faces. Naruto just smirked. Something happened while I was training. I stumbled upon a preserved spot filled with these products of the past, and that includes those living machines you saw earlier. I studied there and trained. I mean, come on, it was freaking awesome. I'd have to be a fucking dumbass not to take advantage of that. I learned so much. I gotta tell y'all, Iruka's history lessons suck compared to that. But then again, they sucked anyway, heh. Anyway, we're an old species. Older than our history books tell us. Way older. Hell, we existed before the Biju did. We're probably the reason the Biju exist. We have that kind of potential. And the world's bloodline limits. Hey, forget all the crap you were taught. When they first started appearing, the holders were treated like Jinchuriki. That's right, Hyuga. Your ancestors were not those of some superior royal family or some junk. They called the early blood limit users mutants, perversions of nature, and other derogatory names. No way, said a council member. Yes way, said Naruto as he gave the hoverboard a gentle shove where it glided over to Sakura, who looked at it with wide eyes, then to Naruto, who nodded with a grin. Luckily, the humans and the mutants finally learned to get along and the blood limits stabilized and began to become repetitive in family lines. Wait, began another council member. If what you say is true, then why is there no history of it? If our ancestors were really as great as you claim, then we should really have some sort of evidence, and for that matter, if what you say is true, then it is imperative you reveal to us the location of this preserved spot so that we may secure it in case an enemy gets a hold of it. Naruto looked directly at the council member, a middle-aged man who seemed full of himself but was rather logical. The man obviously didn't like something like what Naruto had described being left unguarded, obviously believing that only Konoha was entitled to such powerful artifacts. Naruto could understand that logic. However, no can do on that second one. That spot was given to me and it will be up to me to decide on what to do with it and who gets what. Naruto meant every word. The first thing to truly belong to him, and they wanted to take it. Fuck that bullshit. The council broke out into a symphony of demands and reasons on why the boy should reconsider what he just said, but Naruto wasn't budging on this. Nah. Not this time. They would have resorted to all-out threats and yelling had it not be for one thing. And that was Sarutobi shooting out of his chair and shouting with a chakra-enhanced demon head jutsu, "Shut the freaking fuck up, you bunch of babblin baboons." Naruto, Sasuke, Shikamaru and Sakura huddled together, so overwhelmed by their own fear at the Hokage that they completely forgot anything else. The council too shut up. "Now then," began the Hokage as he turned to Naruto. "While I can understand your position and your desire to keep what is yours, you must also understand that news of you is already spreading. This spot you speak of, everybody and their mama is gonna be here looking for it." Naruto nodded, instantly recovering from his fear-induced shock. "Yeah. I know it won't stay a secret for too much longer, however you don't need to worry. The area is very well protected." Naruto's gleaming eyes were all Sarutobi needed to see before he was satisfied, the image of that sentinel dancing through his mind. The council members looked ready to say something again when Naruto said, "Please keep your pants on, guys. I do plan to help out the village. Hey, our medical facilities especially are about to get one hell of a freaking boost. Can I go now, old man?" Sarutobi chuckled and gave a dismissive wave. Naruto grinned, then turned to the three other genin in the room. "Come on," he said. He glared at the Toad Sannin. "Your frog had 3 days to live." The all four genin were out of the room. Sarutobi sighed and rubbed his temples. "I'm way too old for this crap," he muttered. "Hokage-sama, you forgot to promote him and the Nara boy," said another council member. "Sonova, oh never mind, I'll promote the some other time." There were sweat drops all around. As Naruto, Sakura, Shikamaru and Sasuke made their way through the village, one thing became apparent. The people were looking at Naruto like a human. Like a hero. The blonde was shocked at first when a woman ran up to him, gave him a kiss full on the lips and thanked him repeatedly for his acts during the invasion before running off, vanishing into the crowd. And she was a fine-ass woman too, nothing but curves and perfection with a dash of angelic face. Naruto didn't even care if she might have been a worker in the red light district. He had just been kissed. That is some awesome shit to get to experience. Sasuke's only reaction to witnessing that was the slight widening of his eyes. The three genin followed silently behind Naruto as they headed towards his house. Each one of them was lost in thought. They didn't really pay attention to the people as they crowded around the blonde, shaking his hand, patting him on the back and little kids calling him the Teknon. They were each glad the boy finally had his moment of glory, but that wasn't really their main concern. For Sakura, she had a few things to say to Naruto, mostly around the fact that he had actually slapped her ass. Her face heated up a bit at that, though one wouldn't be able to tell if it was from anger or not. The other was pure curiosity. The hoverboard was once again strapped to her back. She marveled at the technology in the seemingly plain slab of metal. She wanted to see more of what he had. She wanted to learn. Shikamaru was in a way similar. The only things he saw were the weapons he had used against Neji and of course the pawning of the Shukaku, but that was it. And from what he had observed from Sasuke, there was much he didn't get to see. Lazy he may be, he is still a genius, and geniuses cannot deny their overactive brain's precious knowledge. It just wasn't in the genes, or a law of nature they could break for that matter. Sasuke wanted power. He wanted that wave motion cannon. Fuck Orochimaru. If Naruto was willing to share with Sasuke his weapons and magic and whatever the fuck else he had under his belt, then Sasuke would stay his Uchiha ass right in Konoha to get those things. Hell, he would never call Naruto Adobe again. He'd teach him every jutsu he knew. Sasuke saw opportunity in Naruto he never thought existed until about 3 hours ago. And then there's the freaking Kyuubi. Fuck Orochimaru. Naruto is where it's at. The four arrived at Naruto's rundown apartment a few minutes later and waited as the blonde fiddled with the door and swung it in. Excitement and anticipation was welling up inside them as they followed the blonde in. "Alight," began said blonde. "Since you two are my teammates," he pointed to Sakura and Sasuke, "and you're too fucking smart for your own good," grins at Shikamaru. "I'll give ya guys the full rundown on what went down. But you can't tell anybody shit until I'm ready to tell anybody shit. Got it?" There were 3 nods, one obviously more impatient than the others. Naruto grinned and grabbed his scroll. "Thanks for watching here.